Chapter 653. The entire family happily ate together. This meal was extremely sumptuous, and although it wasn't made from herbs or demonic beasts, it was still the most delicious meal Qin Wentian had in recent years. The feeling of being able to dine together with his family after being separated for over 10 years was something that couldn't be experienced in the outside world. Qin Wentian, who was inside the Qin residence, felt as though his entire body was relaxed from the depths of his heart. He listened to Qin Shang and Qin Ji discussing their cultivation trends, as well as their love experiences, while a warm smile hung on his face. Occasionally he would interject a few sentences, but it didn't matter. Everyone else also wanted to hear about Qin Wentian's experiences. Qin Wentian told them about it, causing all of them to sigh with emotion. The outside world was actually so vast. Grand Xia was referred to as the desolate land of desolation by outsiders, and out of the three empires, Grand Xia was the weakest, so weak that it was pitifully pitiful. The Grand Zhou Empire and Grand Shang Empire were subsidiary empires of the Royal Sacred Sect. In the various regions of the Royal Sacred Region, there were countless major and minor transcendent powers. There were also many ancient sects and ancient empires that had existed for tens of thousands of years. Any one of them could easily destroy the entire Grand Xia Empire. Just a single official from one of those ancient empires could trample the Green Cloud Imperial Empire into ashes. In that case, wouldn't it be extremely difficult to live in the Royal Sacred Region? Mother Qin picked up some food for Qin Wentian. Her heart tightened as she listened. There were so many major powers in the Royal Sacred Region. Yet Qin Wentian had to roam the outside world alone. How difficult must it be? It's indeed very difficult. Qin Wentian nodded. It truly wasn't easy for him to reach where he was today. Wentian, take it slow. The outside world is too vast. Let's take it step by step. Maybe in the future, you would be able to join a major power or become a marquis of an ancient country. Qin Shang consoled upon seeing Qin Wentian nodding his head. Qin Wentian started before smiling and nodding his head. In front of the Qin clan, there was no need for Qin Wentian to show off. When I grow up, I want to explore the world with Uncle. Little Qin Xian's tender voice rang out, causing everyone to laugh. Only to see Qin Wentian pinching little Qin Xian's cheeks as he spoke. Good, when you grow up, you will definitely become a heroine whose name will shake the heavens. Qin Xian nodded her head, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Wentian, there are only 2 more months until the end of the year. After the yearly sacrifice, on the first day of the new year, how about we set the date of our wedding? Qin Chuan asked. As you wish, father. Qin Wentian nodded with a smile. Okay. 3 days later, I will bring some men to the Mo residence in the royal capital to propose marriage. There's no need for you to handle these matters. Have a good rest. Qin Chuan stated. Okay. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't have any objections. After the banquet, everyone chatted until late at night before dispersing. After everyone left, Qin Chuan and his wife, Qin Yao and Qin Wentian chatted for a long time before Qin Chuan and his wife returned to their room. They then spoke to Qin Wentian and Qin Yao. You two should rest early as well. Got it, I will accompany Wentian for a while. Qin Yao smiled mischievously. I know you two have a good relationship. Qin Chuan's mother laughed as the two of them left. Qin Wentian and Qin Yao sat down on the grass in the courtyard. The starlight in the sky seemed to contain traces of warmth. Tell me honestly, how many things have you not told me yet? Qin Yao stared at Qin Wentian as though she was interrogating him. Don't tell me you want me to tell you everything that happened in the past 10 years? Qin Wentian felt somewhat depressed. Tell me your cultivation base first. Qin Yao's lips twitched. She wouldn't let this fellow off so easily. Peak of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian shrugged. Although Qin Yao was long prepared, her body still trembled involuntarily. In the past, Heavenly Dipper sovereigns were the stuff of legends in Chu. But now, Qin Wentian had stepped into the peak of Heavenly Dipper at the age of 28. Qin Yao had no way to comprehend what level this was. What about sex? Since you and Mo Qingqing met outside, you must have joined sex before, right? Qin Yao's beautiful eyes flickered with a strange light. In the past, I joined the Battle Sword sect, one of the 9 great sects under the Royal Sacred Sect. But after that, because of some friction between me and the Royal Sacred Sect, I decided to withdraw from the Battle Sword sect, Qin Wentian honestly replied. The Royal Sacred Sect? The hegemon of the boundless region you spoke of? Qin Yao's eyes widened. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Did you manage to escape back here? Qin Yao mumbled. Qin Wentian rolled his eyes. No, there were some seniors who helped me to control the situation. One of them was none other than Qingqing's master, a power named the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Qingqing is the personal disciple of the Medicine Sovereign, the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, and a 5th-ranked alchemist. Her status in the world of alchemy is equivalent to a celestial phenomenon ascendant in the martial world. Qin Yao blinked her eyes. In the darkness of the night, her beautiful eyes were exceptionally bright. However, she didn't know how to describe the shock she felt in her heart. She opened her mouth a few times, but eventually, she sighed softly as a look of sadness flashed in her eyes. What's wrong? Qin Wentian asked as he noticed the look in Qin Yao's eyes. Qin Yao shook her head lightly. She hugged Qin Wentian's arm as she leaned against Qin Wentian, resting her head on Qin Wentian's shoulder. She didn't say anything, quietly enjoying the tranquility of this moment. Wentian, am I very useless? Qin Yao murmured. Her mood was somewhat weak. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing had already walked so far away from each other. Although she was happy for them, when she thought of the distance between her and Wentian getting bigger and bigger, she couldn't help but feel an indescribable pain in her heart. 10 years had passed since they parted. What about the next time they parted? How can that be? My sister Qin Yao is intelligent and beautiful, good at understanding others. If there's a next life, I will definitely want you to be my sister. Qin Wentian stared at the starry sky as he gently spoke. Really? Qin Yao turned her eyes over, as her immeasurably deep eyes stared at Qin Wentian. Of course. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Qin Yao's eyes flashed with a light smile as she hugged Qin Wentian even tighter. She gently spoke. Tonight, you will accompany me here, just like when we were young, and we will count the stars together. Okay, let's count the stars. Qin Wentian laughed. The two of them lay on the grass, staring at the starry sky. The early morning sunlight cascaded down onto the lands of Chu. In the royal capital of Chu, the Mo residence was still rather quiet. However, outside the Mo residence, numerous horses pulling a dragon carriage could be seen galloping over. Beside the dragon carriage, there were many powerful guards. The guards of the Mo residence all felt their hearts trembling. Could this be someone from the royal clan? At this moment, a young man with an extraordinary demeanor walked out from the dragon carriage. This young man didn't exude any aura, yet his aura was extremely natural, exuding the aura of a king. He was cultured and refined, yet didn't lose his majesty. The crown on his head made him seem even more extraordinary. We pay our respects to your majesty. The guards of the Mo residence all knelt on one knee as their hearts trembled. What was going on today? The emperor of Chu Wuwei actually personally came to the Mo residence. Rise. Chu Wuwei gently spoke. I heard that Qin Wentian has returned. Help me inform him that Chu Wuwei is here to pay a visit. Yes, your majesty. The guards of the Mo residence all felt their hearts trembling. How much faith did their new son-in-law have? The emperor of Chu actually personally came to pay a visit. In the entire Chu country, only their son-in-law would receive such treatment. Seems like the rumor circulating in the Mo residence yesterday was true. Back then when Chu Wuwei ascended to the emperor's position, it was because their son-in-law, Qin Wentian, gave the nod of approval. Upon thinking of this, the guards couldn't help but feel their backs straightening even more. The atmosphere in the Mo residence grew livelier as many people came to welcome Chu Wuwei. Even old man Mo personally came. Everyone in the Mo residence was gathered together, feeling shock in their hearts. Qin Wentian had just arrived in Chu yesterday, and today, Chu Wuwei actually came to pay a visit. From this, one could very well imagine how important Qin Wentian was in Chu Wuwei's heart. Your Majesty, Wentian returned to Sky Harmony City yesterday. He should be heading to the Qin residence. Old man Mo spoke to Chu Wuwei. What a coincidence. I heard that Miss Qingqing has also returned. I wonder if it's possible for me to pay a visit? Chu Wuwei smiled, appearing extremely polite. Mo, go and greet your sister Qingqing. Old man Mo spoke. Right. Mo nodded and left. Old man Mo and Chu Wuwei continued to chat, and a moment later, Mo returned. A strange expression appeared on her face as she spoke to Chu Wuwei. Sister Qingqing said that she wishes to rest. Actually, Mo Qingqing's original words weren't as such. When Mo went to inform Mo Qingqing merely replied that she didn't wish to meet with outsiders. It wasn't that Mo Qingqing was rude, it was just that her personality was like this. She wasn't willing to deal with people unrelated to her. Even if it was the emperor, she wasn't very familiar with Chu Wuwei. Those beside Chu Wuwei all had expressions of unhappiness on their faces, and there were even a few who frowned. However, they only heard Chu Wuwei laughing. Fine, I will pay a visit another day. After speaking, he bid his farewell. Old man Mo personally sent them off, and on the way back, Chu Wuwei's guards unhappily stated, Your Majesty, the Mo clan is too rude. Impudent. Chu Wuwei faintly spoke. He glanced at the guard who spoke as he continued, Remember, for those who are related to Qin Wentian, no matter what they do, you are not to interfere. The guard's heart trembled. He didn't dare to say anything more. Chu Wuwei's countenance was as calm as ever. There were no fluctuations in his heart. Qin Wentian, the top ranker of the immortal martial realm, his name shook the entire royal sacred region. Among the younger generation, there was no one who could contend against him. Mo Qingqing, the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. This was what Chu Mang told Chu Wuwei. Chu Mang initially wanted to come with him today, but Chu Wuwei didn't allow it. He came here because he wanted to discuss a matter with Qin Wentian and ask for Qin Wentian's opinion. He had no other intentions. Chu Wuwei didn't come at the right time. Not long after he left, Qin Wentian arrived at the Qin residence, bringing little Qin Xian along with him. Brother-in-law, whose child is this? She's so adorable. Mo hopped and skipped over to Qin Wentian's side. Her slender and elegant figure was filled with the vigor of youth. She's my niece, I brought her here to play. Qin Wentian laughed, rubbing Mo's head. This lass's mouth was so sweet, calling him brother-in-law brother-in-law. She was so sensible. Brother-in-law, I'm not a little girl. Mo's lips twitched. More or less. Mo Feng's voice drifted over. He stared at Qin Wentian and called out, Brother-in-law. Why are you going out? Qin Wentian asked when he saw Mo Feng walking out. Mo Feng nodded his head, his gaze evasive as he spoke. Brother-in-law, I'm going out for a walk. You can go and chat with Sis Qingqing. After speaking, he immediately slipped away. Mo giggled as she mysteriously added, Brother-in-law, do you believe that Mo Feng went on a date? Believe? Which clan's girl is she from? Qin Wentian laughed. I don't know. Mo shook her head. But I've met that girl before. She's like a princess, very quiet and elegant. Even more beautiful than me. Mo Feng has a crush on someone else, but this fellow is too shy and didn't dare to confess. It seems that the girl is about to leave, and that's why Mo Feng mustered his courage to meet someone else. Who knows, maybe he will confess today. Don't tell me you even found out the location of the date? Qin Wentian involuntarily rolled his eyes when he saw the crafty light in Mo's eyes. Of course. Mo's eyes flickered as she contemplated Qin Wentian. Today, even the Emperor of Chu had come to pay a visit to her brother-in-law. That little girl's status was extraordinary as well, and the guards around her were all extremely powerful. Even her father wanted Mo Feng to give up. Since her brother-in-law was so powerful, if she dragged him along, would he be able to boost Mo Feng's courage? Brother-in-law, wait for me. I will go call Sis Qingqing. Let's go out for a walk. As she thought of this, that last Mo slipped away. Qin Wentian stood there as he laughed involuntarily. This lass actually had her eyes on him. However, he also liked that little fellow Mo Feng. This caused him to recall himself back then. Over 10 years ago, wasn't he secretly in love with Mo Qingqing? Now that they were finally together, Mo Feng's love had just started. This was like a reincarnation cycle. As he thought of this, A warm smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he pinched Qin Xian's cheeks. Let's go and watch elder brother chase after that girl, okay? Xian will listen to uncle. Qin Xian gently spoke. Along the way, Qin Wentian brought her along as they soared through the air. This last didn't cry nor did she throw a tantrum. She simply hugged onto Qin Wentian tightly, appearing extremely obedient. Chapter 654. Mou and Mo Qingqing arrived together. Little Rascal followed behind Mo Qingqing, wagging its tail. When it saw Xian in Qin Wentian's embrace, its eyes brightened. At this moment, little Xian was contemplating Mo Qingqing. Her eyes blinked as her mouth opened slightly. Elder sister, are you a fairy? Mo Qingqing was stunned for a moment before she smiled sweetly. The words of a child were simple and honest. For such a young girl to say that she was a fairy, it definitely wasn't some flattering words. Can elder sister hug you? Mo Qingqing smiled. Okay. Little Xian opened her arms and was embraced by Mo Qingqing. She hugged Mo Qingqing's neck tightly as her innocent and adorable eyes stared at the fairy in front of her. Okay, I'm the uncle and you are the elder sister. Qin Wentian was extremely depressed. Brother-in-law, don't be sad. Why don't I hug you? Mou stretched out her arms, indicating that she wanted to console Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian rolled his eyes and glared at her, causing Mou to smile mischievously. Stepping forward, Mou pulled Mo Qingqing with her left hand and hugged Qin Wentian's arm with her right hand as she hopped forward. Let's go and see how that fellow Mo Feng is chasing after girls. In the royal capital, there was an inn that was extremely elegant and unique. This inn was built 2 years ago and was located in the best location in the royal capital. The interior of the inn was elegant yet not luxurious. It was simple yet filled with warmth. The name of this inn was the Drunken Wine Inn. There were many types of wine here, and the prices were all ridiculously high. However, there was a strange rule. As long as you got drunk in the Drunken Wine Inn, all the wine you drank and the food you ate would be free. Hence, there were 2 types of people that frequented the Drunken Wine Inn. One type didn't care about the price of the wine, and the other type were alcoholics that loved wine as much as their lives. Drunken Wine Inn. When Qin Wentian saw the name of the inn, a faint smile appeared on his face. Especially after he heard Mou mention the rules of this inn. His lips curled up in a strange smile. The owner of this inn, could it be that he was none other than that fellow? The Drunken Wine Inn was extremely large and had 3 levels. The wine on the 3rd level was the most expensive, and the rooms were separated by a curtain of beads. Qin Wentian and the others arrived at a private room. Separated by a beaded curtain, they could see 2 silhouettes in the room next door. It was a young man and a young woman. The young man was exceedingly handsome, and the childishness between his brows had yet to fade away. The young woman was dignified and elegant, clad in a white dress, giving off a feeling of purity and gentleness. Her eyes were bright and beautiful, causing people to involuntarily like her. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing were all very quiet, but a smile could be seen on their faces. Mo Feng's judgment wasn't bad. However, Qin Wentian felt that Mo Feng's relationship wouldn't be so smooth sailing. In another private room, there were a few silhouettes sitting there. 2 of them actually had a cultivation base at the Heavenly Dipper realm. Their attention was focused on the young girl opposite Mo Feng. Evidently, they were her protectors. With a Heavenly Dipper sovereign acting as her personal bodyguard, this woman was definitely not someone from Chu. It was very likely that she came from the Qingzhou continent. Are you really leaving? Can't you stay behind? Mo Feng's voice rang out. His gaze was filled with reluctance when he stared at the young girl. The young girl nodded and said in a clear and gentle voice, "Why should I stay?" Disappointment flashed in Mo Feng's eyes as he spoke in a low voice. "Yeah, why did you stay behind?" "Idiot, hurry up and say it's because you want her to stay. You're too stupid." Mou mumbled in a low voice. She was even more anxious than Mo Feng. That fellow truly didn't understand the thoughts of girls at all. But if I still wish to see you in the future, where should I go to find you? Mo Feng summoned his courage and asked. "Qingzhou City. I live in Qingzhou City. If you want to see me in the future, come to Qingzhou City to find me." the girl said gently. Sure, in the future I will go to the Qing continent to look for you. You won't leave the Qing continent, right? Mo Feng laughed heartlessly when he heard the young girl telling him where her home was. No, I'm in a bad mood this time, so I came out to relax. My home is in Qingzhou City, how could I leave? It's a promise then. In the future, I will go to the Qing continent to look for you. You are not allowed to pretend that you don't know me. Mo Feng's mood relaxed a little as he drank a mouthful of wine. Wine could strengthen one's courage, but he still didn't have the guts to confess today. She was too outstanding, causing Mo Feng to feel a sense of inferiority. He didn't dare to say the words hidden in his heart. There's no saving him. Mou was about to go crazy from anxiety. The two people next door fell silent and continued to eat and drink, as though they didn't know what to say. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing exchanged glances as they laughed. The emotions of a young man and a young woman were truly simple and honest. Brother-in-law, Mo Feng clearly said that he likes this girl, and came here today to confess. But he actually doesn't dare to do it. What a coward. Mou angrily spoke. Her voice was very loud, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flicker as he instantly understood Mou's meaning. And as expected, Mo Feng, who was next door, started when he heard Mou's words. After which, his face flushed red as he stared at the young girl opposite him. The beautiful eyes of the young girl also flashed with a hint of panic, as well as shyness. However, she didn't lower her head. Although her beautiful eyes were filled with shyness, she still stared at Mo Feng. That limpid gaze of hers caused Mo Feng's heartbeat to quicken. This girl likes Mo Feng. Qin Wentian was almost certain when he saw the look in the young girl's eyes. Brother-in-law is here as well. At this moment, Mo Feng's heart was pounding. Brother-in-law had always been his idol. Back then, wasn't brother-in-law and sis Qingqing not blessed by others? But brother-in-law had never given up and had been searching for them all this while. Now, over 10 years later, he still managed to bring his sister back. As he thought of this, Mo Feng's face turned red from excitement. He stared at the young girl and spoke, "Ling Yu, I like you." The young girl's face turned even redder when she heard this. Even her eyes were red. However, a radiant smile flickered in her eyes as she spoke to Mo Feng. In that case, you have to work hard. Hearing that the young girl didn't reject him, an expression of excitement appeared on Mo Feng's face. She told him to work hard. This was a form of encouragement. Although Ling Yu didn't directly agree to his courtship, she didn't reject it either. To him, this was already enough. Do you still want to leave? Mo Feng asked. Ling Yu's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of disappointment. She nodded her head. My parents wouldn't allow me to stay outside forever. They have already sent people to fetch me. Don't you know how to work hard? In the future, you can come to the Qing continent to look for me. Mo Feng's eyes were filled with resolution. Ling Yu's words were already sufficient. He stared at Ling Yu as his eyes flickered with deep emotions. The smell of alcohol gushed forth as he summoned his courage and asked, Ling Yu, before you leave, can I kiss you? Ling Yu's eyes were red. She glanced to the left and right as her hands tugged on the corners of her robes. She was extremely nervous. A toad lusting after the flesh of a swan. A cold voice filled with mockery rang out. After which, a group of silhouettes walked over, directly pushing open the curtains and barging in. After these people appeared, Ling Yu's guards also appeared in the private room next door, standing not too far away from Ling Yu. Dong Yi, what do you mean by this? Ling Yu stared at the person in the lead. It was a young man around 20 years of age. His face was filled with rage, as well as a hint of mockery as he stared at Mo Feng. Ling Yu, I followed you all the way from the Qing continent all the way to Chu. Do you think my feelings for you are not deep? Who does this man think he is? Is he even qualified to sit together with you? Dong Yi pointed at Mo Feng as he impolitely spoke. Do I need you to care about my matters? Ling Yu's face was filled with rage as she stared at Dong Yi. Fine, I can't care about you, but I can at least care about him. Dong Yi's gaze was as sharp as blades as he stared at Mo Feng. Now kneel on the ground and say loudly that you are a toad lusting after the flesh of a swan. If you do that, I will pretend that nothing happened today. You are the toad. Mou barged into the private room as she stared at Dong Yi. You have a helper? Dong Yi coldly laughed. Mo Feng, a junior of the Mo residence. I didn't bother with you the past few times, yet you still dared to be so impudent. It's fine if you don't want to kneel today, but I'm afraid not only you, even the Mo residents wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Who are you? What qualifications do you have to threaten me? Mo Feng stared at Dong Yi as he spoke. Mo Feng, you better obediently kneel down. If not, the consequences aren't something your mere Mo residents would be able to bear. Beside Dong Yi, there was another young man. This young man was none other than Qin Wentian, Wuxia, whom he met in the Sky Harmony City yesterday. He was Autumn Snow's boyfriend. Wuxia. Mo Feng was acquainted with Wuxia. He was someone sent by the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to Chu and had an extraordinary status. Wuxia, you even dare to interfere in my matters? Ling Yu's eyes turned cold. I naturally wouldn't dare to interfere in the matters of Miss Ling Yu. However, this Mo Feng truly doesn't know what's good for him, to actually covet Miss Ling Yu. Dong Yi is a guest of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. I naturally have to protect him. Wuxia calmly spoke. This Dong Yi was also from the Qing continent, and was a disciple of one of the transcendent powers, Misty Peak. Ling Yu glanced at her guard, only to hear Dong Yi staring at Mo Feng with a cold expression as he spoke. Even if Ling Yu stood up for you today, she will be leaving soon. If you don't kneel today, the Mo residents will suffer unimaginable consequences because of you in the future. Do you think you can escape? Dong Yi coldly snorted. Mo Feng's face contorted in agony. The Green Cloud Imperial Empire, Green Cloud Pavilion. So it turned out that Ling Yu was from a transcendent power of the Qing continent. Such a power caused him to feel stifled. He finally understood that Ling Yu liked him, or she would have directly rejected him instead of telling him to work hard. He also finally understood the meaning of the words work hard, and also understood the reason why his father told him to give up. So it turned out that many things weren't as perfect as he had imagined. The commotion here soon alerted the entire inn. Many people turned their gazes over, and even the owner of the inn appeared. It was a young man and he spoke. Everyone, can we find another place to settle our grudges? Immortal drunken wine, even if you are a heavenly dipper sovereign, it's best if you don't interfere in this matter. Wuxia faintly spoke, his words causing Mo Feng to feel his entire body turning cold. Weren't they afraid of heavenly dipper sovereigns? For a transcendent power, heavenly dipper sovereigns shouldn't amount to anything, right? Mo Feng thought of his brother-in-law and sis Qingqing. He didn't want to implicate them in this matter. Chapter 655. Immortal drunken wine had already broken through to Heavenly Dipper, and in addition to his good relationship with Chu Wuwei, his status in Chu was extremely high. However, Wuxiao didn't give him any face simply because he was someone from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Behind the Green Cloud Imperial Empire stood the Green Cloud Pavilion. Low-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns couldn't be bothered with them. As for Dong Yi, he was a disciple of the Taowu Peak, a transcendent power of the Qingzhou continent. How could he care about a mere Chu country? Hence, when he saw Mo Feng confessing to the woman he liked, Ling Yu, he directly rushed in and mocked Mo Feng for being a toad lusting after the flesh of a swan, wanting Mo Feng to kneel and beg for mercy. If Mo Feng didn't kneel today, Dong Yi would cause the entire Mo residents to suffer a calamity. Immortal drunken wine's countenance turned extremely unsightly. A beautiful maiden appeared beside him. She was none other than a teacher from the Emperor Star Academy, Mu Rou. She came to Immortal Drunken Wine's residence today, but she didn't expect to encounter such a thing. The people of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire were getting more and more overbearing. Right now, the status of the nobility in Chu was extremely low because the Green Cloud Imperial Army was stationed in the royal capital of Chu. Mo Feng was so angry that his entire body was trembling. A long spear appeared in his hands. This was the spear Qin Wentian gave him. Dong Yi's threat to him was something he couldn't endure, but he was also afraid of implicating the Mo residents, sister Qingqing, brother-in-law, and Mou. The matters here have nothing to do with my family. It's just that I like Ling Yu. I won't kneel to you. If you are a man, don't implicate my family. I'll fight you to the death. Mo Feng pointed his spear at Dong Yi. Mo Feng, leave. Ling Yu turned her head and spoke to Mo Feng. Fight against Dong Yi? Mo Feng was simply courting death. I won't leave. Mo Feng shook his head. Dong Yi stared at him as a mocking smile appeared on his face. You are not qualified to fight against me. Since you won't kneel, who will make him kneel? As the sound of Dong Yi's voice faded, a silhouette dashed towards Mo Feng. This silhouette was a Yuanfu cultivator. His palms blasted out as a gigantic palm imprint descended from the air, exuding a terrifying might. Mo Feng gripped his long spear tightly, infusing his astral energy into it. After which, he stabbed his long spear towards the incoming Yuanfu cultivator. He closed his eyes. He knew that he wasn't a match for his opponent. Busy. A resplendent beam of light shot out from the spear as a terrifying aura directly shattered the palm imprint. After which, the spear penetrated through the head of the figure in the air. That person's face turned ashen as he fell to the ground. This sudden scene caused everyone to be stunned. Mo Feng also stared at the long spear in his hands as his body trembled. This was not his own strength, but the power of the divine weapon spear. This spear was so strong. MHM? Dong Yi furrowed his brows as he spoke to the person beside him. You go. That person nodded his head and stepped out, pressing towards Mo Feng. A terrifying fiery aura bore down on Mo Feng. At this instant he gripped the long spear tightly as he channeled his astral energy into it. He could faintly sense that his astral energy was able to activate the runic patterns within the long spear as an unprecedented strength flooded his entire body, causing Mo Feng to feel an overwhelming sense of power. Stepping out, Mo Feng stabbed out with his long spear once again. Another dazzling beam of light shot out. This time it was a beam of silver light that contained the power to penetrate through everything. In just an instant, that expert who was still walking forward was already penetrated by that beam of silver light, causing him to collapse onto the ground. The long spear brother-in-law gifted to me. Mo Feng was completely dumbfounded, staring at the silver spear in his hands in a daze. What a powerful divine weapon! Mu Rou exclaimed in shock. Upon seeing this divine weapon, she once again recalled that extraordinary young genius from back then. That genius with terrifying attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions was the one who changed her destiny. Ling Yu's beautiful eyes were also filled with shock. She stared at Mo Feng as she asked, Mo Feng, your divine spear? It was gifted to me by my brother-in-law. Mo Feng replied, his words causing Ling Yu to be stunned. Mo Feng's brother-in-law. A strange light flashed in Dong Yi's eyes. He glanced at an old man beside him. The eyes of this old man gleamed with sharpness as he spoke. Let me go retrieve it. After speaking, the old man stepped out. Instantly, a stifling pressure bore down on Mo Feng. With a single step, Dong Yi's body was directly crushed to the ground. He couldn't even lift the long spear in his hands. This old man was at the Heavenly Dipper realm. The disparity between their strength was simply too great. Just the pressure from his aura alone was enough to make Mo Feng unable to withstand it. Stay your hand. Ling Yu berated, only to see the old man snorting coldly. After which, a long vine whizzed out, directly coiling around the divine weapon, instantly pulling it over to Ling Yu. The old man held the long spear in his hands as he turned his head and spoke to Dong Yi. It's a 4th-ranked divine weapon. The hearts of everyone trembled. A 4th-ranked divine weapon? A junior of Chu actually had a 4th-ranked divine weapon? Mo Feng, are you alright? Ling Yu walked to Mo Feng's side and helped him up. Mo Feng smiled bitterly as he spoke to Ling Yu. Ling Yu, maybe I won't be able to find you in the future. That won't happen. Ling Yu shook her head. With me here, I won't allow them to touch you. Mo Feng bitterly shook his head. With the Mo clan around, it was impossible for him to flee alone. Offending the Green Cloud Imperial Empire would only be a calamity to the Mo clan. In the room next door, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng hadn't acted yet. It wasn't that they didn't want to act, but rather, Qin Wentian felt that Mo Feng's future path was still very long. If he wanted to pursue Ling Yu, he would have to depend on himself. Qin Wentian could help him, and even allow him to marry Ling Yu. But if Mo Feng didn't have the capability, he would still face pain and pressure in the future. Letting him feel the pressure was good as well. This would be beneficial to his growth. As a man, Mo Feng couldn't grow up in a greenhouse. However, Mo Feng's performance earlier still made Qin Wentian very satisfied. Strong and responsible, he would definitely be able to support the heavens and earth in the future. Mo Feng is a good child. Mo Qingqing smiled. To think that the child from back then was already so strong. He's a good fellow. Qin Wentian smiled and nodded. Little Xianer hugged Mo Qingqing as she stared at Qin Wentian. Uncle, yesterday Daddy said that you are very awesome. There seems to be someone bullying elder brother over there. Uncle, can you help elder brother? Okay. Qin Wentian gently stroked the little cheeks of Xianer. Before this, no one paid any attention to the bead curtain. But now that the sound of their voices drifted over, the gazes of many turned over. With a piercing sound, the bead curtain was torn apart as the gazes of many turned over. The instant they saw them, the gazes of many froze. What breathtaking beauties! The young man exuded an extraordinary aura. Although he didn't exude any aura, just by sitting there, he gave off a feeling that he was born with the heavens. As for the young woman, she actually had a countenance so beautiful that it could topple empires. Her beauty was unparalleled, causing the men in the room to be dumbfounded. They were hugging a doll-like beautiful little girl, giving off a feeling that they were a happy family. How envious! As for immortal drunken wine and Moreau, they were completely stunned. Their gazes landed on the two of them, unable to shift away. Earlier, they didn't even notice that Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing had appeared before them just like that. Sis brother-in-law. Mo Yu's eyes were red. Mo Feng was being bullied and his entire family was being threatened, yet she was helpless. If she knew this would happen, she would have listened to her father. Although Ling Yu was very good, she wasn't suitable for Mo Feng to pursue. This man is Mo Feng's brother-in-law? Many had strange expressions on their faces. Bu Xiao naturally noticed Qin Wentian. When he heard how Mo Yu addressed the two of them, his countenance turned extremely unsightly. Sis brother-in-law. Yesterday when he saw Qin Wentian, he was already extremely unhappy. Autumn Snow, whom he was wooing, seemed to have some ambiguous relationship with Qin Wentian. But today, when he saw the woman beside Qin Wentian, her beauty was so beautiful that it caused him to suffocate. She was so much more beautiful compared to Autumn Snow. Just someone from the Wu King manor. What capabilities did he have? What qualifications did he have to possess a fairy-like beauty? Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. Mo Feng also called out, feeling somewhat ashamed. Today he had lost face and even implicated Sis Qingqing and brother-in-law. Ling Yu, who was beside Mo Feng, surveyed Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing as she sighed in her heart. What a handsome and beautiful couple. Don't worry about it. Qin Wentian pulled Mo Yu's hand and walked to Mo Feng's side. He rubbed Mo Feng's head as he smiled. Little fellow, your performance today isn't bad. Mo Feng froze as he stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. Brother-in-law was actually so relaxed? Wasn't he nervous at all? You are called Ling Yu? Qin Wentian turned to Ling Yu as he smiled. Ling Yu nodded her head. She didn't know why, but when she stared at that pair of deep eyes, an indescribable sense of confidence appeared in her heart. It was as though as long as this man was here, he would be able to resolve everything. Not bad at all. Are you from the Green Cloud Pavilion? Qin Wentian smiled as he asked. Ling Yu nodded. How are Qianmingyu and old man Gong Hong doing? Ling Yu's body trembled when she heard Qin Wentian's question. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. He was actually acquainted with Qianmingyu and Gong Hong. Chapter 656. Currently, things weren't going well for Qianmingyu and Gong Hong in the Green Cloud Pavilion. In truth, ever since the second celestial phenomenon ascendant appeared in the Green Cloud Pavilion, Old Man Green Cloud was forced out, and the entire Green Cloud Pavilion underwent a heaven-shaking transformation. The new leader of the Green Cloud Pavilion had a completely different personality from Old Man Green Cloud. He was extremely ambitious and had the ambition to expand his territory. He allied with the Misty Peak in the Qing continent to deal with the setting Sun Mountain. and reorganize the resources of the vassal countries outside the Grand Xia Empire. He wanted to advance to the most prosperous region of the 9 continents, the Ginka continent and the Moon continent. I'll chat with you later. Qin Wentian smiled when he saw Ling Yu's eyes flickering. He then turned his gaze onto Immortal Drunken Wine and Mu Rou as he smiled. Long time no see. Long time no see. I heard that you returned yesterday, and Wu Wei even planned to pay a visit to the Mo residence. I wonder if you managed to meet him? Immortal Drunken Wine laughed, causing the expressions of the crowd to freeze. The Wu Wei, Immortal Drunken Wine was referring to was most probably the Emperor of Chu Wu Wei. Chu Wu Wei went to pay a visit to this young man? I missed out. Qin Wentian smiled as he shook his head. He missed out, but I met him. It's been so long since we last met. You have to accompany me for a few drinks. Immortal Drunken Wine laughed. Sure. Qin Wentian nodded. Me too. Mu Rou had a radiant smile on her face. It has been so many years, she didn't expect to meet him again. He had become more and more unfathomable. Right now, his cultivation base should definitely be higher than Immortal Drunken Wine. Not only that, the divine weapon he casually gifted to Mo Feng was a 4th-ranked divine weapon. Mu Rou, after so many years, you are still as beautiful as ever. Qin Wentian laughed, causing Mu Rou to blush. Glancing at Mo Qingqing who was beside Qin Wentian, she giggled. Is that so? Do you want to pursue me? I will definitely agree. Qin Wentian couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile on his face when he saw Mu Rou winking at him. To think that he was being teased instead. Staring at Mu Rou's smiling eyes, Qin Wentian didn't dare to reply no matter how gutsy he was. Dong Yi, Bu Xiao and the rest all had expressions of interest on their faces when they saw Qin Wentian acting as though there was no one else here. Dong Yi stared at Qin Wentian. Are you Mo Feng's brother-in-law? Qin Wentian's gaze slowly shifted over, landing on Dong Yi. How could Qin Wentian have any good feelings towards Dong Yi who threatened the families of others? Qin Wentian merely glanced at him before shifting his gaze back to the others. Seeing Qin Wentian ignoring him, Dong Yi coldly spoke, since Mo Feng doesn't want to kneel, you can do it on his behalf. If you are unwilling, there's no problem with your girlfriend doing it on her behalf. As he spoke, Dong Yi's gaze turned to Mo Qingqing. He had never seen such a beautiful woman before. Although he liked Ling Yu, it was impossible for his heart to not be moved when he saw a woman like Mo Qingqing. Is he also someone from the Green Cloud Pavilion? Qin Wentian stared at Ling Yu as he asked. Ling Yu shook her head and replied. Someone from the Misty Peak. No wonder he is so brazen. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. After which, he turned to Bu Xiao and continued. On account of autumn snow, I won't make things difficult for you. Scram. Within 7 days, get the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to come to Chu to see me. If he doesn't come within 7 days, tell him there's no need for him to come. This was the first time Qin Wentian truly spoke to Dong Yi and Bu Xiao. Just a single sentence from him caused everyone to be stunned. Within 7 days, get the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to come to Chu to see him? If he doesn't come within 7 days, tell him there's no need for him to come? How arrogant was this? Telling the Imperial Emperor to come to see him? So arrogant that Bu Xiao couldn't help but to laugh uproariously. He stared at Qin Wentian like he was looking at a fool. Did I hear wrongly? Bu Xiao glanced to his left and right. He simply didn't dare to imagine that there would be such a foolish person in Chu. Could it be that Qin Wentian didn't know what kind of situation he was facing now? You didn't hear wrongly. Not long ago, a toad appeared here. Now there's another fool. Dong Yi's voice was ice cold. Qin Wentian abruptly turned his gaze onto Dong Yi. At this instant, his calm eyes abruptly gleamed with a terrifying light. In just an instant, a stifling pressure swept over. After which, the sound of wind whistling rang out. The crowd only saw Dong Yi, who was being stared at by Qin Wentian, trembling uncontrollably. After that, Dong Yi's body slowly floated upwards. His body was actually floating uncontrollably. Dong Yi stared at Qin Wentian's eyes. Those eyes were extremely demonic and powerful. With just a single glance, it felt as though they could pierce through his soul, causing him to feel a bone-chilling coldness. He struggled frenziedly, yet he discovered that the omnipresent energy was restricting him, causing him to float higher and higher. Arg! A hoarse roar rang out from Dong Yi's mouth. This sudden change caused everyone to be stunned as they stared dumbfoundedly at Qin Wentian, who was staring at Dong Yi. For the things you did today, dying once is already letting you off too lightly. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a demonic blood-colored light. In just an instant, Dong Yi fell into a terrifying dreamscape. Numerous blood-colored long spears pierced into his body, causing Dong Yi's entire body to tremble uncontrollably as his countenance instantly turned pale. Dong Yi first made Mo Feng kneel before him, then threatened the entire Mo residence. After that, he threatened Mo Qingcheng, wanting her to atone for her crimes? Just based on this, Dong Yi's death sentence was already set in stone. People from the Misty Peak? Back then in the Royal Sacred Sect, if it wasn't for the various experts obstructing him, he would even dare to kill Zai Qiao. What power could the Misty Peak be considered? Mo Feng and Mo Yu's eyes were wide open as they stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. Brother-in-law's strength was so strong, beyond their imaginations. Release him! The old man who snatched away Qin Wentian's long spear earlier roared. He pointed the long spear at Qin Wentian as his voice was ice cold. Qin Wentian glanced at him. With just a single glance, that old man only felt as though he saw a light sharper than the edge of a blade slicing through his body, destroying his soul. That old man trembled slightly as he stared at the young man in front of him. How could there be such a powerful person in Chu? Sir, we are from the Misty Peak. That old man's aura was slightly weaker. He could only use the power of his sect to suppress Qin Wentian. His life is mine. The rest of you scram. If you want revenge, tell the Misty Peak's master to look for me. Qin Wentian took a step forward. With just a single step, the Heavenly Dipper sovereign old man actually slumped onto the ground. He felt as though his entire body was pierced through by a sharp sword as he coughed out fresh blood. He was scared silly as he inclined his head in shock. The long spear in his hands had long since been tossed aside. If he wanted revenge, tell the Misty Peak's master to look for him. How tyrannical was this? Although this sounded somewhat illusory, in the face of such strength, he couldn't even muster the slightest bit of thoughts of revenge. Most probably, if he wanted to deal with this young man, he would have to ask the Misty Peak's master for help. How terrifying was this young man? The others had long since been scared silly as their bodies trembled. Everywhere Qin Wentian's gaze passed by, they all lowered their heads, not daring to look directly at that pair of eyes that were as sharp as swords. Dong Yi, who was floating in the air, was scared silly. Earlier, he thought that Qin Wentian was an idiot. But now he himself was scared silly as well. His countenance was completely drained of all color. Senior, this junior had no intention to offend you. Dong Yi's voice was trembling. Qin Wentian glanced at Mo Qingcheng. Mo Qingcheng hugged little Xian and turned around, blindfolding little Xian. After which, Qin Wentian waved his hand and with a thunderous boom, Dong Yi's body directly vanished into thin air. Not even a single drop of blood could be seen. He vanished into thin air just like that. When Bu Xiao looked at Qin Wentian again, the expression in his eyes was already somewhat abnormal. His body trembled unceasingly, as though he was trembling. He simply didn't dare to imagine how powerful Qin Wentian was. A Heavenly Dipper sovereign was suppressed to the ground with a single step. He finally understood why Autumn Snow was acting so strangely yesterday. He also finally understood why the woman beside Qin Wentian was so beautiful. They basically weren't people from the same world. When Qin Wentian's gaze landed on him, Bu Zhao's entire body stiffened as though he was waiting for judgment. Let me remind you one more time. If you don't come within 7 days, there's no need for the Imperial Emperor to come anymore. As Qin Wentian spoke, he took a step forward. With a thunderous boom, Bu Zhao's body was directly flung through the air by an incomparably terrifying force, vanishing from the vision of everyone. Why are you all still not scramming? Do you want me to invite you all? Qin Wentian turned his gaze to the people Dong Yi brought over. Those people all felt as though they had just been granted amnesty as they hurriedly left the inn. Staying here, they couldn't even breathe smoothly. That sort of suffocating pressure was simply too unbearable. Revenge? They didn't even dare to think of such a thought. Someone who directly asked the Imperial Emperor to come see him and the Misty Peak Lord to find him for revenge. Would they even dare to have the thought of revenge? Most probably, Dong Yi had died for nothing. This time around, they had kicked an iron plate that they couldn't afford to offend. It wasn't that Qin Wentian didn't dare to kill them. It was just that he couldn't be bothered to do so. The mastermind behind today's incident, Dong Yi, had his soul dissipated, not even a drop of blood was spilled. When he killed Dong Yi, did he see that young man frown? Brother-in-law. Mou stared dumbfoundedly at everything that happened before her. Her mind was in a mess, truly in a mess. Her entire person was abnormal. Ah, brother-in-law, you want to teach me cultivation? Mou rushed up and hugged Qin Wentian's arm tightly. Today, her understanding of the world had been toppled by Qin Wentian. She was born in a major clan in Chu and her grandfather was a heavenly dipper sovereign. She could be considered to have seen many things, but she also knew that a power like the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was in existence she didn't dare to imagine, let alone the Green Cloud Pavilion and Misty Peak. However, a casual sentence from Qin Wentian was to tell the Imperial Emperor to come see him. She had seen many young geniuses before, and there were even many people who pursued her. These people always liked to show off their excellence, and their words were filled with arrogance and arrogance. But could that be considered arrogance? Today, she finally saw what arrogance was and finally understood what pride was. With such a powerful brother-in-law, only then could she be proud. Chu. This morning, didn't the Emperor of Chu come to visit brother-in-law? With brother-in-law around, wouldn't the entire Green Cloud Imperial Empire be able to do whatever they wanted in the future? Mou happily fantasized. There shouldn't be any pressure, right? Chapter 657. The shock in Mo Feng's heart was even more intense compared to Mou. He was still standing there in a daze, staring at Qin Wentian. Was this the true strength of brother-in-law? How powerful was brother-in-law exactly? Ling Yu, who was beside Mo Feng, had a deeper understanding of how powerful Qin Wentian was. Her face was filled with astonishment. Since Mo Feng's brother-in-law was acquainted with Qian Mingyu, and also knew of the Green Cloud Pavilion and Misty Peak, he should also know what level these two transcendent powers were at. However, he still dared to say that he wanted the Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to meet him within 7 days, and even wanted the Misty Peak Lord to seek revenge. From this, one could very well imagine what level this man before them was at. However, he was still so young he shouldn't be 30 years old yet. Had he really reached such a high level of attainment? This was too unbelievable. Mo Feng, the long spear I gave you is still lying on the ground. Do you not want it anymore? Qin Wentian spoke to Mo Feng. Yes. Mo Feng hurriedly picked up the divine spear that was lying on the ground. Only now did he know the weight of this divine spear. A 4th-rank divine weapon, the current him wasn't qualified to wield it. Most probably, only after he stepped into the heavenly dipper realm would he be able to truly wield this divine spear as his weapon. Brother-in-law, the divine weapon you gave me, what grade is it? Mou shook Qin Wentian's arm. She was filled with the vitality of youth, as though she had regained her liveliness. 4th-ranked. Qin Wentian shook his head with a bitter smile. Mou giggled. In the entire Mo residence, other than Sis Qingqing and brother-in-law, only he and Mou had a 4th-ranked divine weapon. Not only that, it should be one of the more powerful 4th-ranked divine weapons. Mo Qingqing had been standing behind them with a smile on her face. At this moment, she walked forward, her gaze landing on Ling Yu as she smiled. Mo Feng, aren't you going to introduce your friend to us? Mo Feng started. After that, he scratched his head, wanting to stretch out his hand to pull Ling Yu. However, he retracted his hand in the end. Ling Yu seemed to have sensed it and took the initiative to stretch out her hand, holding on to Mo Feng's hand as an expression of shyness flashed past her face. He stared at the smiling Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing. Ling Yu, this is my elder sister Mo Qingqing. Back then, Sister Qingqing was the #1 beauty in Chu. Naturally, now she's still the same. This is my brother-in-law, Qin Wentian. When I was young, brother-in-law obtained the position of number 1 in the Junlin banquet when he was only 17. After that, sister Qingqing was harmed by someone and brother-in-law followed her out to roam the world. Now, 10 years have passed, and he's holding sister Qingqing's hand as we're preparing for our wedding. Ling Yu seriously listened, staring at this immortal-like couple in front of her. Although Mo Feng had only said a few words, it still caused a warm current to flow in her heart. She didn't expect that the two of them would have such a poignant legendary story when they were still young. It has been 10 years and he returned in such a domineering manner, marrying the woman he loved when he was still young. This story was so beautiful. Could the story between her and Mo Feng be so beautiful as well? Sis brother-in-law, this is Ling Yu. Mo Feng laughed heartlessly as he held Ling Yu's hand tightly. He definitely wanted to be like his brother-in-law, holding the hand of his lover, never letting go forever. Mo Qingqing took out a few small bottles and passed them to Ling Yu. She smiled. The red bottle contains the spirit cleansing pill, the blue bottle contains the aperture molding pill, and the brown bottle contains the limit break pill. This pill can increase the chances of breaking through to the heavenly dipper realm. You can consume it in the future. As for the green bottle, it contains the life recovery pill. Before you step into the celestial phenomenon realm, this pill can heal any injuries that aren't poisonous. Don't waste it on light injuries. Take these as a greeting gift. Ling Yu stared dumbfoundedly at Mo Qingqing. Pills that could increase the chances of breaking through to the heavenly dipper realm, and could heal any injuries before the celestial phenomenon realm? How heaven-defying were these pills? Even his green cloud pavilion might not have them. Ling Yu actually felt a little embarrassed as she stretched her hands out to receive them. Ling Yu, since sister Qingqing is giving them to you, just keep them. Mo Feng spoke in a low voice. Ling Yu nodded her head and carefully kept the pills. Staring at the fairy-like woman in front of her, she could see a trace of doting love in her eyes. This fairy sister really treated her as a junior, right? Her gaze was so warm, causing people to feel comfortable. Thank you, elder sister. Ling Yu obediently replied. I didn't prepare any gifts. Ling Yu, which of these divine weapons do you like? Feel free to choose any one of them. Qin Wentian spoke as he waved his hand. A moment later, a row of divine weapons appeared beside him. In an instant, a resplendent light illuminated the entire inn. The aura exuded from each of the divine weapons caused Ling Yu's heavenly dipper sovereign guards to feel a sense of suffocation as their breaths quickened. Never would they have expected that the silly little fellow Mo Feng, whom they didn't have high hopes for, would actually have such a powerful elder sister and brother-in-law. Also, the two of them seemed to dote on Mo Feng a lot. Just this point alone was sufficient to change the fate of this silly little fellow Mo Feng. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to the heavens. Mo Feng's good fortune wasn't something everyone could have. Little miss, please choose. Seeing Ling Yu's hesitation, her heavenly dipper sovereign guards were all extremely depressed. The divine weapons placed before them were all extremely high-tier 4th-ranked divine weapons. Ling Yu could even choose a high-tier 4th-ranked divine weapon. Yet her little miss was still standing there like a fool. Ling Yu walked up and chose a sharp sword as well as a divine robe. After which she turned to Qin Wentian and smiled warmly. That's enough. Take this feathered wing as well. Qin Wentian smiled. With a wave of his hand, a feathered wing appeared in front of Ling Yu. This divine weapon would allow Ling Yu to have an advantage in speed. Okay. Ling Yu blushed as she nodded her head. Qin Wentian kept the divine weapon as he took out a golden scroll and passed it to Ling Yu. These are spatial teleportation scrolls. They can allow you to teleport a certain distance. Keep them all. The hearts of Ling Yu's guards trembled once more. Just how wealthy was this pair of lovers? To think that they would give away such precious items in bulk just like that. When Ling Yu heard Qin Wentian's words, how could she not understand how precious these gifts were? She blushed as she stared at the gentle smile in Qin Wentian's eyes. She then called out, "Thank you, brother-in-law." Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing exchanged glances as they smiled. Ling Yu calling them elder sister and brother-in-law made them feel extremely comfortable in their hearts. They wouldn't interfere with the relationship between Mo Feng and Ling Yu. They would only do what they could to help. Ling Yu's way of addressing them was already a tacit acknowledgement of the relationship between her and Mo Feng. Sis brother-in-law, you guys are biased. Mo Yu only started giggling now, as though she wanted to take advantage of the situation to rob them. I won't forget about you in the future. Mo Qingqing glared at this lass, causing Mo Yu to smile in satisfaction. Xiner wants one too. Little Xiner, who was in Mo Qingqing's embrace, stared at her adorable expression. Mo Qingqing smiled as she pinched Xiner's cheeks. Okay, Xiner naturally has one too. Fairy sister is so nice. Little Xiner rubbed Mo Qingqing's face as a happy smile appeared on her face. Upon seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't help but smile. This scene caused them to feel a sense of warmth. Let's sit down and chat. Qin Wentian saw that everyone was still standing. He then turned his gaze onto Immortal Drunken Wine and Mu Rou as he smiled. How many cups of wine do you want to drink? Okay, I will go get some. Immortal Drunken Wine smiled as he turned and left. The group of them sat down, while Ling Yu's guards tactfully retreated. Although they had Heavenly Dipper sovereigns among them, and could be considered kings in Chu, in front of this couple, if it wasn't for the fact that they were his family and friends, Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't even have the qualifications to sit together with him. Immortal Drunken Wine took out the best wine in the wine cellar. When it entered the mouth, it tasted sweet and fragrant. Yet when it entered the stomach, it felt like it was burning hot. It even faintly tempered the meridians in one's body. Back then, I already knew that you were a dragon among men. After 10 years, I can only look up to you in admiration. If I knew this earlier, I would have followed Chu Mang and roamed the world together. Immortal Drunken Wine downed a cup of wine as he sighed. You are the immortal of wine, and your personality is unrestrained and unrestrained. Even if you had a second chance, you wouldn't choose to leave with me. Qin Wentian laughed, as though he had seen through Immortal Drunken Wine's personality. To think that other than Wu Wei, you are the only one who understands me. Immortal Drunken Wine laughed. Back then at the Junlin banquet, Wu Wei and I bet on you. At that time, even we didn't think that we would win, but who would have thought that the ending would be even more marvelous than we had imagined? Immortal Drunken Wine drank a few more cups as he started to chat about the past. Mu Rou quietly listened by the side. She was extremely silent. Maybe she didn't know what to say. Could it be that 10 years ago, she had already been secretly in love with this young man before her? Seeing him sitting together with Mo Qingqing, Mu Rou's heart was filled with sincerity. They were destined to be an immortal couple. When Qin Wentian and the others were chatting in the Drunken Wine Inn, the Drunken Wine Inn was already in an uproar. With the Drunken Wine Inn as the center, a piece of news rapidly circulated throughout the royal capital of Chu. 10 years later, the number 1 ranker of the Junlin banquet, Qin Wentian, and the number 1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingqing, returned to Chu hand in hand. In the Drunken Wine Inn, Qin Wentian had a conflict with those from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire and Misty Peak. He domineeringly killed one of them and chased the others away, leaving behind an arrogant declaration that he would summon the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to see him within 7 days. Evidently, the commotion caused by the incident in the Drunken Wine Inn wasn't small. This news spread out at a terrifying speed, shaking the entire royal capital of Chu. Over 10 years had passed. Although Qin Wentian had left for a very long time, there were still people who would occasionally mention his story. For these 10 years, the reason why Chu Wuwei was the emperor of Chu was because of a single sentence from Qin Wentian back then. With the return of such a character, how could the royal capital of Chu not be shaken? Although the outside world was shaken, the inn was still as calm as ever. Not long after, the Emperor Chu Wuwei personally brought his men to the Drunken Wine Inn, causing the hearts of the people in the inn to tremble. The rumors back then were indeed true. The moment Qin Wentian appeared, Chu Wuwei personally came to pay him a visit. Chu Wuwei and Chu Mang appeared together in the inn, causing Qin Wentian to be extremely happy in his heart. His elder brother Chu Mang had indeed returned to Chu earlier than him. Seems like his feelings for his elder brother Chu Wuwei hadn't changed at all. Long time no see. Chu Wuwei was still as carefree and unrestrained as ever, smiling at Qin Wentian. Long time no see. Qin Wentian stood up and gave Chu Mang a hug as he smiled. Big bro Chu Mang, are you doing well? I'm doing well. Chu Mang also hugged Qin Wentian tightly as a simple and honest smile appeared on his face. Upon seeing the relationship between the two of them, a faint smile appeared in Chu Wuwei's eyes. Chapter 658. Big bro Chu Mang, did Fatty Fan Lo, Ouyang and the others split up with you a long time ago? Qin Wentian thought of his companions. Chu Mang nodded. Back then when we left the royal sacred region, we split up. However, they agreed to leave a message in the unmatched realm. If we go there, we should be able to find them. Very soon, I will be holding my wedding with Qingcheng. If those fellows dare to not attend, I will definitely not spare them. Qin Wentian smiled. He first returned to Chu with Qingcheng, but he still had to make a trip to Grand Xia. Firstly, it was to invite his companions over. Secondly, there was another matter he needed to do. If they dare to not attend your wedding, I won't spare them. Chu Mang laughed happily. Qin Wentian and Qingcheng were finally going to get married? How happy! Back then when they heard that Qin Wentian went to the Pill Emperor Hall alone, all his companions were extremely heartbroken. Luckily, everything was over now. The current Qin Wentian didn't need to care about the Pill Emperor Hall anymore. He was a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, the foster son of the human emperor of ancient Yi. Just a single word from him would be enough to destroy the entire Pill Emperor Hall. Chu Mang had left the royal sacred region for quite some time now. He still didn't know that Qin Wentian had already left the Battle Sword sect. This was to avoid future conflicts with the royal sacred sect, and implicating the Battle Sword sect. After all, the Battle Sword sect was a subsidiary sect of the royal sacred sect. The group of them sat back down and chatted for a while. After that, Qin Wentian stared at Chu Wuwei as he asked, "What's going on with the Green Cloud Imperial Empire?" As he spoke, he glanced at Ling Yu. Ling Yu is someone from the Green Cloud Pavilion, she should know some things. This morning, I went to the MO residence because I wanted to discuss this with you. The Green Cloud Imperial Empire is a power established by the Green Cloud Pavilion. Their purpose is to unite the 10 subsidiary countries, and they have the intention to merge all 10 countries into one. Hence, their control over the 10 countries is extremely tight. As for the matters of the Green Cloud Pavilion, I have no way to come into contact with them. Chu Wuwei replied. Ling Yu nodded. Ling Yu, is this old man Qin Yan's intention? Qin Wentian asked. Ling Yu looked at Qin Wentian in surprise, but at this moment, she could accept the fact that Qin Wentian knew old man Green Cloud. After all, judging from Qin Wentian's previous performance, he should have stepped into a very high realm, and it was very likely that he had some contact with the upper echelons of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Old man Green Cloud left the Green Cloud Pavilion a long time ago. After the destruction of the 9 mystical palace, a second celestial phenomenon ascendant appeared in the Green Cloud Pavilion. That ascendant proclaimed himself as the Green Cloud Sovereign, and was extremely powerful. He fought against Old Man Green Cloud for the authority to control the Green Cloud Pavilion. Old Man Green Cloud lost and hence, he left the Green Cloud Pavilion to roam the world. A sect producing 2 celestial phenomenon ascendants, the Green Cloud Pavilion should have risen to prominence by now. Why would there be internal strife? Qin Wentian asked in bewilderment. The reason why the Great Solar Chen clan was so powerful back then was because they had 3 celestial phenomenon ascendants in their ranks. A single celestial phenomenon ascendant was extremely important to a transcendent power of Grand Xia. The Green Cloud Sovereign is extremely powerful and has wild ambitions. His relationship with Old Man Green Cloud isn't very harmonious, and he needs absolute control over the sect. For those who don't agree with him, although he wouldn't do anything to them, he would make sure that person would be reduced to a branch of the Green Cloud Pavilion, losing all authority. Back then, both of them opposed the establishment of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Now they no longer have any authority to speak in the Green Cloud Pavilion. Qin Wentian's brows twitched. Seems like this newly ascended Green Cloud Sovereign was extremely powerful, and had a strong desire to control the Green Cloud Pavilion. Although Old Man Green Cloud was already a celestial phenomenon ascendant, His strength couldn't be measured by the time he broke through to the celestial phenomenon realm. At the celestial phenomenon realm, the disparity between different celestial phenomenon ascendants could be extremely great. The position of the faction I'm in has also been weakened by a lot. The upper echelons hope that I can form a marriage alliance with someone from the Misty Peak, using this to improve the relationship between our two powers. Also, such a marriage alliance has already happened several times. Hence, Dong Yi is the reason why I came out to relax. Ling Yu lowered her head as she spoke. Her faction had an extraordinary status in the Green Cloud Pavilion, but now, they still had to listen to the Green Cloud Sovereign's orders. I see. Qin Wentian nodded his head. He smiled at Ling Yu. Ling Yu, you temporarily don't return to the Green Cloud Pavilion. Stay in Chu for a few more days, and let Mo Feng accompany you. Your family members will understand you in the future. When Ling Yu heard Qin Wentian's words, she felt that something was amiss. Staring at the concerned gaze in Qin Wentian's eyes, she didn't want to reject him. Qin Wentian was definitely doing this for her own good. Hence she nodded her head. Okay. Chu Wuwei didn't continue the topic of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Since Qin Wentian already knew about it, the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was no longer a problem. While they were chatting, more and more people arrived at the Drunken Wine Inn. Many clan leaders from the major clans of Chu personally came to pay their respects. Among them, Mu Ro's clan was included, as well as the experts from the Divine Weapon Pavilion whom Qin Wentian was acquainted with in the past. However, An Luyan didn't come. She should have long left Chu. Among the various clans, only Mu Ro's father and the Pavilion Lord of the Divine Weapon Pavilion were invited to the inn. The others waited outside, but they didn't dare to have any thoughts. Even the Emperor of Chu Wuwei personally came to pay his respects. What could they do if they waited outside? However, when the others arrived at the inn, Qin Wentian personally went out to welcome them. Staring at the silhouettes in front of him, Qin Wentian bowed. Old Gu, senior run teacher, Wentian was planning to pay my respects to the elders of the Emperor Star Academy. When Qin Wentian returned to the royal capital from the Sky Harmony City, he already had the thought of going to the Emperor Star Academy together with Mo Qingcheng. It was just that he was coincidentally dragged here by MOU. And the people from the Emperor Star Academy actually took the initiative to pay their respects. Haha, Wentian, there's no need to be so polite with us old fellows. Rin Qianxing hurriedly stepped forward, preventing Qin Wentian from bowing. He had heard from Mustang that Qin Wentian had roamed the outside world, causing the entire Grand Xia Empire to be turned upside down. In terms of strength, Ren Qianxing still had to address Qin Wentian as senior. Little brat, what did you call me? Old Gu stood on the back of his demonic beast, his arms crossed in front of his chest as he beamed at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian laughed as he bowed once more. Wentian sends his regards to grandfather. Ha, good. Old Gu also stepped forward to support Qin Wentian, his face filled with smiles. Grandfather, Qingcheng originally planned to pay a visit to you. How are your bones? Mo Qingcheng passed little Xi to Mou, as she walked forward and hugged old Gu's arm, as though she had returned to the time when she was still a young girl. Good, very healthy. I was just about to reprimand you, but you better shut grandfather's mouth first. Old Gu dotingly rubbed Mo Qingcheng's head, as Mo Qingcheng gently smiled. Teacher, how are you? Qin Wentian smiled as he looked at Mustang. How can I not be well? As for your senior sister Luo Huan, I'm afraid she's still busy with your matters outside. Mustang laughed. I'll bring my senior sister back to Chu a few days later. Qin Wentian laughed. Qingcheng and I are about to get married. Teacher, at that time, you have to be my elder and bear witness to our wedding. Right, this old bag of bones of mine can still endure the torment. I'll be waiting. Mustang happily nodded his head. This most outstanding disciple of his was finally going to marry the #1 beauty of Chu. Mo Qingcheng was the maternal granddaughter of his teacher Old Gu. Humph. Old Gu coughed a few times, causing Mustang to awkwardly smile. Teacher, I'm just running errands for you. Useless fellow, since you are Wentian's teacher, I shall let you have it easy this time. On the day of the wedding, you will be on the same level as me. Old Gu joked, as everyone laughed. The relationship between the three generations was truly heartwarming. The private rooms of the inn were almost full. Everyone surrounded Qin Wentian and asked him many questions. The atmosphere was joyous and harmonious, and only after a long time did they disperse. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing returned to the Mo residence together. That fellow Mo Feng even abducted Ling Yu to be a guest in the Mo residence. The people of the Mo clan were naturally very happy. For the next day, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing were busy helping little Xian Mo Feng, Mo Yu and Ling Yu to change their physiques. Little Xian was the youngest, and with Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing around, this little lass should be able to condense an astral soul from the third heavenly layer when she was 10 years old. Another day passed. Qin Chuan brought the members of the Qin clan and headed towards the Mo residence in the royal capital. Using the strength of the entire Qin clan, they prepared a generous betrothal gift. Although the betrothal gift couldn't be compared to the wealth of Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing, it represented the sincerity of Qin Chuan and the entire Qin clan. They would do their best to make this wedding as perfect as possible. The Mo clan was naturally overjoyed. They organized a grand banquet, and all the aristocrats of Chu came to offer their congratulations. The date of the wedding was also fixed. Because of this, the royal clan announced to the world that on the day of the wedding between Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing, a banquet would be held in the entire royal capital. At the same time, the entire Chu country would be mobilized to maintain order and control the number of people entering the royal capital. The entire Chu country was shaken. Countless people who heard of Qin Wentian's name all rushed to the royal capital, wanting to see for themselves how grand this wedding would be. It actually caused the Emperor of Chu to announce to the world that there would be a banquet in the entire royal capital. After the news of the wedding was announced, Qin Wentian personally wrote out numerous invitation cards, after which he summoned several astral war beasts that were proficient in speed, telling them to hold the invitation cards and rush towards the royal sacred region. Right now, the astral war beasts Qin Wentian summoned were all peak-tier heavenly dipper sovereigns. The amount of astral energy in their bodies was so vast that it was sufficient to allow them to cross the distance between Chu and the royal sacred region. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing were officially together. The two of them spent every day together, hugging little Xian, as they roamed the royal capital like ordinary people, enjoying the pleasures of ordinary people. Until one day, in the airspace above the royal palace of Chu, a group of experts descended in an imposing manner. 9 powerful heavenly dipper sovereigns were pulling a dragon carriage. Within the dragon carriage, there was an incomparably tyrannical figure with a crown on his head. This was none other than the Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. At the instant these people arrived, the entire royal palace trembled. The experts from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire in the air released a terrifying aura as they roared. Subject Chu Wuwei of Chu is here to receive the Emperor. Their voices shook the surrounding tens of miles around the royal palace, causing countless people to turn their heads in the direction of the royal palace. The Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire had arrived within 7 days. Chapter 659. The Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was personally appointed by the Green Cloud Sovereign. He controlled 10 countries and was extremely powerful. He was a staunch supporter of the Green Cloud Sovereign, and his status in the Green Cloud Pavilion wasn't low at all. He was an elder-level character. Right now he was in charge of 10 countries and had immense authority. He collected the wealth of the 10 countries and married many maidens, living a carefree and happy life. He was currently preparing to merge the 10 countries into one, removing the name of country, and merging them into the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. At that time, he would truly be the hegemon of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. This was much more enjoyable compared to the days he spent in the Green Cloud Pavilion. Because of his age, he had been stuck at the peak of Heavenly Dipper for many years. In the Green Cloud Pavilion, he had always been suppressed by others. Now he could finally soar as high as the heavens. However, he didn't expect that in a mere Chu country, there would actually be someone who dared to be so brazen, telling him to come here within 7 days. As the Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, with the support of the Green Cloud Pavilion, He truly wanted to see who dared to be so arrogant. Subject Chu Wuwei, quickly come out to receive the emperor. A loud voice rang out, causing the entire Chu royal palace to tremble as a huge wave of commotion rose up. Within the royal palace, numerous silhouettes stepped out. An instant later, several people appeared. Chu Meng brought Chu Wuwei over, standing guard by his side. Chu Wuwei then turned his gaze onto the Green Cloud Imperial Emperor as he spoke. Chu Wuwei respectfully welcomes the arrival of the Green Cloud Imperial Emperor. The Green Cloud Imperial Emperor was still seated in his dragon carriage. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at Chu Wuwei. Beside him, an expert clad in silver-white armor announced, "Under the command of His Majesty, the subjects of Chu are too arrogant. From today onwards, the name of Chu shall be removed and the Chu country shall be directly governed by the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Chu Wuwei, follow me back to the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. There will naturally be someone who will take over the position of Chu country." As the sound of his voice faded, the entire royal palace was in an uproar. Many people were greatly shocked as their countenances drastically changed. The Green Cloud Imperial Empire officially withdrew from Chu. Their arrival was so intense and ferocious. "Your Majesty, although my Chu country was once a vassal country of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, we are still an independent country. Forgive me for not being able to comply." Chu Wuwei calmly spoke. "Impudent." Chu Meng stepped out, standing in front of Chu Wuwei. His countenance was ice-cold as his aura erupted forth, exuding a tyrannical aura. "His strength isn't bad. There's actually someone in Chu with such a cultivation base. No wonder he dares to be so arrogant." The Green Cloud Imperial Emperor walked out from the dragon carriage. He was clad in royal robes and had a crown on his head, exuding an incomparably imposing aura. His gaze swept through the Chu country as he smiled. "From today onwards, the males of the Chu country shall be sent away by the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, while the females shall be sent to the Green Cloud Imperial Empire for distribution." The countenances of those in the royal palace were all greatly shocked. The countenances of the maidens were as pale as paper. To think that the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire would be so ruthless, treating the people in the royal palace as objects to be distributed. He simply didn't treat them as humans. The men would be banished and the women would be sent to the Green Cloud Imperial Empire for distribution. How would they be distributed? Were they all given away? Domineering and tyrannical, the Green Cloud Imperial Emperor was using iron-blooded methods to intimidate Chu, causing the other countries to not dare to have any thoughts of resistance. The strength of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire could suppress everything. Those who resisted definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Great rivers and mountains, not bad indeed. It's rumored that the females of the Chu country are extremely beautiful. I wonder if it's true or not. The Green Cloud Imperial Emperor faintly spoke, his countenance exuding a sense of imposingness, causing others to not dare to resist. Chu Meng's aura surged wildly, and just when he was prepared to fight, a voice filled with a terrifying might drifted over from afar. "I told you to come to Chu within 7 days because I want you to repent and not to flaunt your strength." As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying sword chi tempest manifested in the air. The eyes of the crowd stared in the distance as their countenances were filled with terror. After which, they only saw a king's sword brimming with boundless sword might flying over, stirring up the wind and clouds. Above the royal palace of Chu, the wind and clouds changed as sword chi ravaged the area, wanting to tear apart the sky. This sword was gigantic, suppressing everything, destroying everything as it sped towards the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. "Your Majesty, be careful." The countenances of the people from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire drastically changed. Even the Imperial Emperor had a look of terror on his face. That sword might was simply unblockable. "I'm the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. An order from the Green Cloud Sovereign. How dare you be so impudent?" The Imperial Emperor roared. The gigantic sword arrived, wanting to tear apart everything. The experts from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire rushed forward to resist, but as the gigantic sword whistled past, their bodies were all lacerated, transforming into a rain of blood. The countenance of the imperial emperor was incredibly ugly to behold. With a roar of rage, the gigantic sword descended with a force so great that it felt like even the heavens would collapse. This sword was an astral nova. The imperial emperor's aura towered up into the sky as he frenziedly released his astral nova. However, as the king's sword swept past, everything was destroyed. His countenance was filled with terror. He wanted to flee, but the sword directly slammed into him. Piercing sounds rang out as the terrifying might of the sword directly tore his body apart, leaving nothing behind. Boom! A thunderous sound thundered through the air as the astral nova suppressed the heavens and earth. The experts from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire felt the sword might, and when they saw the Imperial Emperor dying, their bodies trembled violently as their countenances turned ashen. A single sword strike directly killed the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire. Below, those from the royal palace of Chu were all dumbfounded. They only felt that everything that happened before their eyes was like a dream. When the Imperial Emperor arrived, his aura towered up into the sky. How arrogant was he! He was like a sovereign descending upon the world, causing the Chu country to become the Chu prefecture, banishing the men from the royal palace and distributing the women to them. He was simply unexcelled in this world. But in the blink of an eye, he was killed with a single sword strike. He didn't even have a chance to defend himself. Using the name of the Green Cloud Sovereign to suppress others? The one who killed him completely ignored him, directly killing him without mercy. Outside the royal palace, there were also many people who turned their gazes over. When they saw this scene, great waves of shock rose up in their hearts. The Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, controlling 10 countries. Was he powerful? Arrogant? A single sword strike killed. From afar, a white-robed figure slowly walked over. With a single glance, this person exuded a demonic aura. Staring at his eyes, one would feel as though they were intoxicated. This young man's age was definitely not over 30, but it was precisely him who killed the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire with a single sword strike. Is he the Qin Wentian who caused the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire to come here within 7 days? Over 10 years ago, he obtained the top ranker of the Junlin banquet. Now he brought back the #1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingcheng, and will be getting married in his homeland. The Chu Emperor announced this to the world, and arranged for a banquet to be held in his homeland. If I didn't remember wrongly, he should be 28 years old this year. Returning to his homeland in glory. Returning to Chu for his wedding. The Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire came to Chu to cause trouble. Yet he killed him with a single sword strike. How glorious is this! Everyone had different thoughts in their minds as they sighed ruefully. The gigantic sword whistled in rage, as the hearts of those from the Green Cloud Imperial Empire trembled. However, they only saw the sword returning back into Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian didn't kill them, but the hearts of the crowd were all trembling. Go back and report this to the Green Cloud Sovereign. Tell him that I, Qin Wentian, will be getting married in Chu and ask him to attend the ceremony. Qin Wentian stared at the crowd as he coldly spoke. Back then, he transformed into a great rock and joined hands with Fairy Qingmei to invite Old Man Greencloud to attack the 9 Mystical Palace, destroying it. At that time, although they didn't reveal their identities, the upper echelons of the Green Cloud Pavilion would definitely know about it. The Green Cloud Sovereign was the person in charge of the Green Cloud Pavilion, and as long as these people passed the message to him, the Green Cloud Sovereign would definitely know who Qin Wentian was. The countenances of the crowd were all different, yet huge waves rose up in their hearts. Could it be that this man didn't even fear the Green Cloud Sovereign? If not, why would he dare to kill the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire, and even dare to ask the Green Cloud Sovereign to attend the ceremony? Right. The crowd replied as they turned and retreated one after another. They came with boundless arrogance, but when they left, they were like stray dogs. The Imperial Emperor was killed with a single sword strike. How laughable was this? What was even more lamentable was that before this, they were still announcing the decree to change the Chu country into the Chu prefecture. But now that they thought about it, it was like a joke. Chu Wuwei calmly watched everything that happened, yet waves of shock rose up in his heart. From Chu Mang, he already knew about Qin Wentian's situation in the outside world. But when he personally saw how tyrannical that unyielding youth was back then at the Junlin banquet, he still felt as though he was dreaming. Not only him, everyone in the royal palace felt as though they were in a dream. Qin Wentian nodded his head to Chu Mang and the others before he turned and departed. Killing the imperial emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire was nothing to him. His death was sufficient to let the Green Cloud sovereign and the Misty Peak lord know of his, Qin Wentian's, existence. They knew that he, Qin Wentian, had returned to Chu. The incident in the royal palace instantly caused a huge commotion in Chu. The name of Qin Wentian once again resounded through the entire country, causing great waves of commotion. Countless people would be in high spirits when talking about him. Killing the imperial emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire with a single sword strike. How magnificent was this? The Mo residents, Qin clan, Emperor Star Academy, and the other major powers all felt their hearts pounding violently when they heard of this matter. How strong was Qin Wentian now exactly? He actually dared to ask the Green Cloud sovereign to attend the ceremony? However, a few days later, when Gong Yonghong and several other experts from the Green Cloud Pavilion came to Chu to pay a visit to Qin Wentian, who had caused such a huge commotion in Chu, had already left the royal capital of Chu. The Grand Xia Empire was boundlessly vast, and in the air, a white-robed silhouette was riding on a flying sword, whistling through the air. This white-robed silhouette stared down at the vast land below as a look of reminiscence flashed in his eyes. Chu was his homeland, but Grand Xia was the place where he grew up. When he was 18 years old, he entered Grand Xia and grew up here. There were simply too many things that happened here. Now he had returned to this land. This time around, he wanted to settle the matters of Grand Xia and Chu together. Today in Grand Xia, the various transcendent powers were still in control of this ancient empire. Other than the Great Solar Qin clan and the 9 mystical palace, the other transcendent powers were still as powerful as ever. Back then, the Pill Emperor Hall suffered a huge storm. But after Junyu came to the Pill Emperor Hall in the name of the Royal Sacred Sect, the Pill Emperor Hall had recovered their strength and was still one of the strongest transcendent powers in Grand Xia. As for the Ouyang aristocrat clan in the Azure continent, their development during these years wasn't too bad. Their strength was extremely strong, but one of their most outstanding juniors, Ouyang Guangxing, was currently at odds with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. At the same time, in Grand Xia, there was an undercurrent that was rumored to be wanting to revive the Azure Emperor Palace. One in the light, one in the dark. It was as though there were 2 Azure Emperor Palaces. Chapter 660. In the unmatched realm of the Azure continent, everything was the same as before. The geniuses of Grand Xia came to the unmatched realm to cultivate, and as long as they passed the test, they would all be accepted. Today, an uninvited guest appeared in the unmatched realm. The eyes of many elites of the unmatched realm flickered with curiosity. Although this person was young, his demeanor was extraordinary, and he didn't seem to be a junior. His cultivation base shouldn't be weak at all. You're here. At this moment, a silhouette appeared. This person was none other than the expert who had tested Qin Wentian back then. He stared at Qin Wentian, yet he couldn't see through him at all. Senior, did you know that I would return? Qin Wentian curiously asked. You don't have to refer to me as senior anymore. That person shook his head. They are all waiting for you. Them? Qin Wentian was taken aback. After which, that person turned and spoke. Follow me. Qin Wentian nodded and followed after that person, arriving at the summit of one of the 36 mountain peaks. At the summit, Qin Wentian couldn't help but be stunned when he saw numerous silhouettes appearing in front of him. Fan Lo Yunmingi, Qin Zheng Mufeng, all of them were actually here. On the contrary, Ouyang Guangxing from the Azure continent wasn't here. This caused Qin Wentian to feel a sense of strangeness. These people all had their own plans when they left the royal sacred region. Now that they were all gathered together, something must have happened. Boss, you're finally back. If you still didn't come, we wouldn't know what to do. Fatty Fanla seemed to have something on his mind. A look of worry could be seen on his face. What happened? Qin Wentian landed on the summit as he asked. That son of a bitch, the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Fan Le cursed in a low voice. Back then, I was already unhappy with them. They betrayed the alliance because of the appearance of Junyu. Right now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan has 3 celestial phenomenon ascendants, and their strength is even stronger than before. They're getting more and more overboard, wanting to ally with the Jiang clan and rule over Grand Xia. The relationship between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan has always been pretty good, advancing and retreating together. Ouyang Guangxing is even engaged to Jiang Ting. With the destruction of the great Solar Chen clan, it wouldn't be strange if the Ouyang aristocrat clan wanted to rise up. Qin Wentian spoke. That's not strange at all. But back then, because of the matter of the Ouyang ancestor breaking the alliance agreement, Ouyang Guangxing had a disagreement with them. After he left, the Ouyang aristocrat clan had long since removed Ouyang Guangxing from their list of nurturing core members. This time around, after Ouyang Guangxing returned, he had an intense conflict with the Ouyang aristocrat clan, and even fought against a heaven chosen that the Ouyang aristocrat clan was heavily nurtured, injuring that heaven chosen. This enraged the Ouyang aristocrat clan, and they decided to remove Ouyang Guangxing's name from the clan. Fan Lu angrily stated. And then? Qin Wentian's eyes sharpened. Qin Zheng speak. Fatty Fan Lu spoke to Qin Zheng who was beside him. Qin Zheng continued. The person who was beaten up by Ouyang Guangxing was named Ouyang Zichen. This man is a heaven chosen of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, with a cultivation base at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. After Ouyang Guangxing left the clan, he has been pestering Jiang Ting. The countenance on Qin Wentian's face changed slightly. He already understood what was going on. Ouyang Guangxing had a carefree personality. He wasn't someone who was greedy for power. He also disdained the authority of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. And the reason why he came back wasn't because he coveted the authority and status of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Back then, he had already said that as long as Jiang Ting's heart didn't change, he would come back to marry her. But now, Ouyang Zichen was pestering Jiang Ting. Based on Ouyang Guangxing's personality, how could he let this matter rest? However, Qin Wentian could also guess that Ouyang Zichen chasing after Jiang Ting wasn't just because of his own intentions. The Ouyang aristocrat clan definitely had a hand in this. Just like back then, they hoped that Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting would be together. Now that Ouyang Guangxing was no longer under their control, they hoped that someone else could replace Ouyang Guangxing and be together with Jiang Ting. And indeed, Fan Le raged. A few days ago, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang Ting announced that Ouyang Zichen would be marrying Jiang Ting 9 days from now. They even invited the transcendent powers of the Azure continent to bear witness. A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes when he heard this. No wonder Fan Lu and the others gathered here. So it was because of Ouyang Guangxing. However, with their current strength, they wouldn't be able to change anything in front of a transcendent power. Ouyang Guangxing must have gone crazy. Qin Wentian asked, where is he now? Back then when he was in love with Mo Qingcheng, Ouyang Guangxing was already together with Jiang Ting. After over 10 years of love, Jiang Ting would definitely be deeply in love with him. If not, if Jiang Ting was willing, Ouyang Guangxing would definitely have taken the initiative to give up on her. Evidently, Jiang Ting was forced into this marriage. Not only that, there was a high possibility that Ouyang Guangxing would use Ouyang Guangxing to threaten Jiang Ting. The purpose of this marriage alliance was to express the will of the 2 transcendent powers, to contend for the hegemony of Grand Xia. It didn't matter if Jiang Ting was willing or not. Although she had an important position in the Jiang clan, she wasn't a successor. She was destined to be sacrificed for the sake of the hegemony. She was placed under house arrest by the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Qin Zheng replied. What should we do? Fan Le stared at Qin Wentian as he asked. A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. Initially, he wanted to do his first battle after returning to Grand Xia at the Pill Emperor Hall. But now, it seemed that the changes to Grand Xia would start from the Azure continent. You guys wait for me in the unmatched realm. I'm going out for a while. Qin Wentian stared at the others. There were still 9 days left. It should be sufficient. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he departed, like the wind. His actions caused Fan Lu and the others to be stunned, as they couldn't help but to be speechless. 2 days later, within a bamboo forest in the Spirit Continent, a small city could be seen. Although the city appeared quiet, there were still demonic beasts roaming about. Qin Wentian stared at this small city that was only tens of miles in size, as a strange light flashed in his heart. It seemed like Fairy Qingmei had made this secret location the Azure Emperor Palace was situated in. This Azure Emperor Palace was the name he had given to the powers he had gathered before he left. Who are you? Even before Qin Wentian's silhouette landed, several maidens appeared in the quiet city. All of their faces were veiled, and their identities were mysterious. They surrounded Qin Wentian. I'm Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the gazes of these maidens froze, as they stared at Qin Wentian with hesitation. You've returned. A voice drifted over from below, after which, Qin Wentian saw a bewitching silhouette appearing. 2 to 3 years had passed, but Fairy Qingmei's countenance hadn't changed at all. Hurry up and pay your respects to the palace lord. Fairy Qingmei spoke to the maidens. Your subordinates pay our respects to the palace lord. The maidens all bowed. Qin Wentian nodded. At this moment, Qin Wentian could feel the killing intent he felt earlier vanishing in an instant. Numerous figures appeared one after another, standing in the air as they inclined their heads and stared at the young man in the air. Was this the most legendary young man in Grand Xia? We pay our respects to the palace lord. Everyone bowed, paying their respects to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over them as a smile appeared on his face. The strength of these people before him wasn't bad at all. They were much stronger compared to the time when he left. Qin Wentian saw a figure dressed in red standing among the crowd. She had an alluring figure, as well as an elegant countenance. The corners of her lips curled up in a charming smile as she stared at him. Everyone, just focus on your own matters. There's no need to bother about me. Qin Wentian spoke. After which, he slowly descended, landing in front of the red-robed figure as he smiled gently. Senior sister, how have you been these years? I've stayed here to help you. I've been tortured by you until I've become skinny. Luo Huan giggled. Her charming eyes were as mesmerizing as ever. Qin Wentian contemplated Luo Huan's alluring figure. He couldn't help but smile. Senior sister's figure is still as good as ever. Which part of you have become skinny? Luo Huan walked up and helped Qin Wentian straighten his collar. Her red lips curled up as she exhaled a fragrant breath. You're still as good at talking as ever. Not only that, you're even more handsome than before. Have you missed your senior sister? Sis, stop trying to tempt me every time. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Luo Huan's smile grew even more charming. What's wrong with that? In any case, your little girlfriend isn't here. Whatever you want to do, senior sister won't blame you. Black lines appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Seeing the awkward expression on his face, Luo Huan retreated a few steps, letting him off the hook. Didn't Qing return with you? Fairy Qingmei asked. Qin Wentian's countenance dimmed when he heard Fairy Qingmei's words. He didn't know what to say. Qing whereabouts are as elusive as a dragon's tail. If she doesn't wish to see me, it would be extremely hard for me to find her. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Fairy Qingmei understood Qing the most. She also knew of Qing's extraordinary background. Upon hearing Qin Wentian's words, a strange light flickered in her eyes, but she didn't probe further. This time around, are you preparing to contend against Grand Xia? It's been so long, it's about time to fulfill Senior Azure Emperor's wish. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Senior Qingmei, I want the first battle to be held in the Azure Continent. The experts of the Azure Emperor Palace must gather in the Azure Continent within 6 days. Can you come to the unmatched realm to look for me? 6 days? Not a problem. Fairy Qingmei nodded her head, as a bewitching smile flickered in the depths of her eyes. Do you want to invite the Mystic Moon Sect as well? If the Mystic Moon Sect is willing, let's go together. Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head. Do you want to stay here, or temporarily return to the Azure Continent? Fairy Qingmei asked. Those from the White Deer Institute as well as the Punishment Hall are not far from here. There should be some of them who wish to meet with you. Okay, I'll stay here for a day. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Fairy Qingmei smiled. Go and arrange a place for the sect leader to rest. Fairy, why do you need to arrange it? Just stay with me. Luo Huan giggled. Cough cough. Qin Wentian's face was filled with black lines. I said to stay in the same courtyard. Junior brother, what are you thinking? Luo Huan's eyes were like silk, as she giggled at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian immediately fled. Only his senior sister Luo Huan would dare to bully him like this. Bai Luyi was much more obedient compared to Luo Huan. She was still as pure and beautiful as ever, and her big eyes were even more beautiful. After meeting with Qin Wentian, she would only accompany him to chat, and occasionally discuss about divine inscriptions. However, after chatting for 2 hours, Qin Wentian sent her away. Maybe it was because Bai Luyi didn't know what to say, or maybe it was because of the light in her eyes when she glanced at him, causing Qin Wentian to be at a loss on what to do. Chapter 661. In the Azure continent of Grand Xia, the flames of war rose up as experts from all directions gathered. The Ouyang aristocrat clan of the Azure continent and the Jiang clan of the Wind continent were going to form a marriage alliance, inviting all the transcendent powers of the Azure continent to participate in the banquet. As for whether they would show up or not, that was another matter altogether. The meaning of this marriage alliance was self-evident. All the transcendent powers of Grand Xia were well aware of it. This marriage alliance was no different from an alliance, expressing the determination of both transcendent powers to advance and retreat together. On the surface, this was merely a wedding between Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting, but the hidden meaning was that this was a union between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. Right now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan had 3 celestial phenomenon ascendants while the Jiang clan had 2. Once they formed an alliance, they would have a total of 5 celestial phenomenon ascendants. In addition to the foundations of the 2 aristocrat clans, they would instantly become the strongest power in Grand Xia, sweeping through everything before them. To Grand Xia, this was undoubtedly a tempest. Hence, it was unknown how many transcendent powers gathered in the Azure continent. In the Azure continent, there were 5 transcendent powers. They were Ouyang aristocrat clan, multidirectional Thunderwind sect, Azure Emperor Palace, Mystic Maiden Palace and Sword Extinction Sect. Back then when Qin Wentian was cultivating in the Unmatched Realm, he had already met with the geniuses of these 5 transcendent powers, and had even fought against several of them. After staying in the bamboo forest for a day, Qin Wentian returned to the Azure continent and stayed in the Unmatched Realm, paying a visit to the Unmatched Elders. The relationship between him and the Unmatched Elders wasn't bad, but they still didn't care about external affairs, including the old man who had once helped him before. Qin Wentian discovered that this old fellow actually had a cultivation base at the Celestial Phenomenon Realm, yet he chose to remain hidden in the Unmatched Realm. No wonder the status of the Unmatched Realm was so transcendent. There were so many experts here, yet they didn't have the ambition to rule the world. Today, Qin Wentian brought Fan Lu and Old Xing to the Mystic Maiden Palace as guests. During the era of the Azure Emperor, Old Xing was already in charge of punishment. Even now, his cultivation base had already broken through to the Celestial Phenomenon Realm. He and Fairy Qingmei were the pillars of the Azure Emperor Palace. Fan Lu and the little princess of the Mystic Maiden Palace, Xian Xian, had already confirmed their relationship back then. Now that Xian Xian had also grown up, her status in the Mystic Maiden Palace had also risen. She easily led Qin Wentian and the others to a great hall in the Mystic Maiden Palace. There were many experts from the Mystic Maiden Palace here, and their gazes all landed on Old Xing who was beside Qin Wentian. This old man had his eyes closed and seemed harmless, but everyone could clearly feel the faint pressure radiating from him. There was a high possibility that this old man was at the Celestial Phenomenon Realm. Naturally, Qin Wentian was one of the main targets of observation. Back then in Grand Xia, this man caused a huge commotion, splitting apart the Pill Emperor Hall with his sword, shaking the entire Grand Xia. But after that, he suddenly vanished without a trace, vanishing without a trace for several years. Now that he had returned, that carefree countenance of his had an unfathomable smile on it. Back then, the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings of Grand Xia, the young man who split apart the Pill Emperor Hall with his sword, what cultivation base had he reached now? Outside the Great Hall, a group of silhouettes walked over. The woman in the lead seemed to be around 30 years of age, and had a mature countenance, exuding an aura of purity. This was none other than the palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace. The palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace walked to the main seat in the Great Hall and sat down. She surveyed the old man who had his eyes closed beside Qin Wentian as her eyes gleamed with sharpness. "Are you old Xing, the one in charge of punishment under the Azure Emperor?" "Palace mistress has good judgment." Old Xing opened his eyes, as a terrifying pressure swept over the Great Hall, causing the experts of the Mystic Maiden Palace to involuntarily tremble. The eyes of the palace mistress gleamed with sharpness, after which, her gaze landed on Qin Wentian as she smiled. "I've long heard of Qin Wentian's name since a few years ago. You are truly a young heaven chosen. I wonder what brings you here today." "I'm here to gift your Mystic Maiden Palace some good fortune." Qin Wentian smiled. The expert beside the palace mistress coldly laughed. Back then, although the Azure Emperor faction was controlled by the Azure Emperor, isn't it a little too arrogant to say that you are gifting good fortune to my Mystic Maiden Palace? The palace mistress had a smile on her face, but she didn't reply. Before the marriage, the Ouyang aristocrat clan was already the strongest power in the Azure continent. After the marriage, there's no need for me to say anything more. These few years, I Qin have been to many places. The other two empires that are adjacent to Grand Xia, Grand Shang and Grand Zhou, were both at their peak. As long as they wanted to, they could easily destroy Grand Xia with a flip of their hands. It's just that my Grand Xia is a place of desolation. Nobody is willing to step into it. Even the Xi clan of Grand Shang actually dared to occupy the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. And this wasn't even the full strength of the Xi clan. How ridiculous is this? Qin Wentian slowly spoke. Grand Xia is lacking in cultivation arts and innate techniques. The experts with great talent are all leaving the desolation grounds, while the experts in the desolation grounds are still complacent. It's only a matter of time before they are destroyed. What arrogant words! The female who spoke earlier berated. She stared at Qin Wentian. A mere junior dares to spout such arrogant words? Who do you think you are? When the palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace and the other experts arrived, Qin Wentian had been sitting there the entire time. He didn't even stand up to welcome them. This point already caused them to be extremely unhappy. Old Xing was a celestial phenomenon ascendant, and was also a senior character, yet he still acted like this. Although Qin Wentian's name shook Grand Xia, wasn't his attitude a little too arrogant? Did he really think that he was on the same level as the palace mistress? Palace mistress of the Azure Emperor Palace, Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian faintly spoke. His gaze swept over to the female who spoke as he coldly replied, "I'm talking to the palace mistress. When did it become your turn to interrupt?" "Impudent," that female berated. "Right now, the Azure Emperor Palace is still in the Azure continent. I'm afraid your title as the palace mistress of the Azure Emperor Palace was self-conferred, right?" As the sound of her voice faded, a terrifying might gushed forth from old Xing. He stepped out and instantly, a stifling pressure bore down on the female who spoke as he abruptly smashed out with his palm. The palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace waved her hands as a beam of cold light slammed into the palm imprint, causing the entire space to tremble. "Old Xing," Qin Wentian called out. Old Xing retreated to his side as though nothing had happened. "We are guests. It's not my wish to be the host." Qin Wentian faintly spoke. "It's just that the people of the Mystic Maiden Palace are so knowledgeable. How disappointing. Just take it that I made a wasted trip here." After speaking, he stood up only to see the palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace interjected. "You haven't finished what you wanted to say earlier. What kind of good fortune are you planning to gift to my Mystic Maiden Palace?" The chaotic era of Grand Xia is coming to an end, and it will definitely be unified. There will be a few factions controlling the Grand Xia Empire. If Palace Mistress is willing, You can choose one of them. Qin Wentian stared at the palace mistress as he spoke. The eyes of the palace mistress flashed with sharpness. Although she was prepared in her heart, she didn't expect that Qin Wentian would actually dare to speak such arrogant words. The female who spoke earlier coldly laughed. Simply ridiculous. Palace mistress, although this young man's talent is extraordinary, he has already lost his sense of self and doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. I'll wait and see. The palace mistress of the Mystic Maiden Palace was silent for a moment before she smiled. She truly wanted to see how Qin Wentian would unify Grand Xia. Sorry for the disturbance. Qin Wentian smiled. After which, he turned and walked out of the Great Hall. He only thought of the Mystic Maiden Palace because of the relationship between Fan Lo and Xian Xian. But since the other party didn't trust him, there was nothing more to say. Palace mistress, this young man is too arrogant and rude. Are we going to let him leave just like that? That female spoke again when she saw Qin Wentian preparing to leave. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness when he heard this. He abruptly turned and stomped the ground as a terrifying aura gushed forth. His eyes stared straight at the female who spoke, causing the female's eyes to sink into the depths of purgatory. Frog at the bottom of a well. A voice thundered out like thunder from the clear skies. After which, the female was flung through the air by an immense force, slamming heavily into the ground as she coughed out a mouthful of blood, her countenance as pale as paper. When she inclined her head, the only thing Qin Wentian left for her was the back view of his back. The experts of the Mystic Maiden Palace all felt their hearts pounding violently. Only a few words echoed in their minds. Frog at the bottom of a well. These words were spoken to the female, but weren't they also spoken to the entire Mystic Maiden Palace as well? That female's cultivation base was at the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian stood at his original location and directly sent her flying. What was laughable was that she actually dared to say that Qin Wentian didn't know any etiquette. The Heaven Chosen, whose name shook Grand Xia back, then had already grown to a level she didn't even dare to imagine. Palace mistress. The gazes of the experts turned to the palace mistress, only to see that she didn't give the order to stop Qin Wentian. Her gaze landed on Xian Xian, who hadn't left yet, as she asked, "Did Fan Le talk to you about Qin Wentian's matters in the outside world?" "Yes, I did." Xian Xian nodded. "Tell me the most important things," the palace mistress stated. Fan Le said that they went to a place named the Royal Sacred Region. That place is governed by the Royal Sacred Sect, and there are countless transcendent powers there. Any one of them could easily annihilate the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. When he met Qin Wentian, it was during a tempering exercise in the immortal martial realm. All the geniuses of the Royal Sacred Region would gather there and compete for the rankings. Qin Wentian obtained the top ranking of the immortal martial realm, and is also a disciple of a transcendent power, the Battle Sword Sect, as well as the foster son of an ancient emperor. However, I don't know much about these transcendent powers, but I do know that they should be stronger than our Mystic Maiden Palace. Xian Xian tugged at the corner of her robe as she spoke. She didn't expect that Qin Wentian would have a conflict with the Mystic Maiden Palace. However, when the palace mistress heard Xian Xian's words, her heart trembled as she felt a chill running down her spine. After a long time she sighed. She knew that the Mystic Maiden Palace might have lost a great opportunity. From now onwards, the Mystic Maiden Palace would no longer have the authority to speak in Grand Xia. Xian Xian, why didn't you tell me earlier? The palace mistress sighed. I'm not very clear myself, and you didn't ask me, Xian Xian replied in a low voice. The palace mistress had a bitter smile on her face as she shook her head. Xian Xian, treat Fan Le better in the future. Hurry up and chase after them. Okay. Xian Xian nodded her head as she walked out. Qin Wentian didn't really mind this matter. If the Mystic Maiden Palace trusted him, he would allow them to become the pillar of support for Grand Xia. But since they didn't trust him, it didn't matter either way. The Azure Continent was a gathering place. On the surface, the transcendent powers from all over the Ouyang aristocrat clan were all gathered together. But in the dark, there was a storm brewing in the dark. Qin Wentian's forces had all arrived in the Azure Continent, and they were all gathering together. Chapter 662. In the Azure continent, the morning sun was filled with vitality, its golden rays cascading down on the earth. Today, the Azure continent was bustling with activity. Everywhere, people were moving towards a certain direction, and that direction was none other than the location of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Today, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan would have a marriage alliance. The chosen of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Ouyang Zichen, would marry Jiang Ting of the Jiang clan. A bright red carpet was laid out from afar, all the way to the Ouyang aristocrat clan's castle. Guards could be seen on both sides of the road, with a sentry every 3 steps. From afar, there were many experts descending from the skies, stepping on the wide ground as they walked along the red carpet, heading towards the Ouyang aristocrat clan. For those who obtained an invitation, they could enter the Ouyang aristocrat clan. For those who didn't, they could only wait outside the castle. Congratulations, congratulations, Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting's wedding is truly a match made in heaven. Outside the ancient castle, there were important figures from the Ouyang aristocrat clan personally standing there to welcome the guests. More and more people walked over, showing their invitation cards and entering. For those who didn't have an invitation card, they could only stand there and watch. The experts from the Sword Extinction sect have arrived, all of them exuding sword chi. The person in the lead is none other than the Supreme Elder of the Sword Extinction sect, Wu Jiansang, one of the 36 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of Grand Xia. His sword arts are extremely bizarre, and he has the title of Sword King. Someone recognized the leader of the Sword Extinction sect as his heart trembled. Celestial phenomenon ascendants were all transcendent characters. It wouldn't be easy for them to show themselves. Hence, the transcendent powers would only send their important figures to attend the wedding. The experts from the multidirectional Thunderwind sect have arrived as well. The experts from the Azure Emperor Palace have arrived. Seems like the transcendent powers of the Azure continent have arrived first. The hearts of the spectators mused as they stared at the figures entering the ancient castle. Within the stone monument, there were many layers of stairs, separated into different levels. For those outside, they didn't have an invitation. The lowest level was at the outermost perimeter of the ancient castle. This place was the largest, and belonged to the ordinary transcendent powers. Continuing up past the 9 steps, there was another level. At this level, there were people from the transcendent powers, including the ordinary disciples and guards of the transcendent powers. Continuing upwards, past the 9 steps, there weren't many seats available. Those who could sit here were all core characters from the transcendent powers, and would be accompanied by important characters from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Above these people was the stage for the wedding ceremony. This group of people would be able to watch the ceremony from a close distance. Layers upon layers of stairs, from the outside of the ancient castle, everything was incomparably clear. Every corner of the castle was within their field of vision, and other than the distance being a little far, it didn't hinder them from spectating the ceremony. Not only that, for cultivators, their field of vision was extremely broad. This little distance to them wasn't considered anything. The Ouyang aristocrat clan's arrangements could be said to be extremely thorough. Representatives from the other regions of the Great Xia's 9-state city have also arrived. There are so many people. Although they all have ulterior motives, they are all polite on the surface. The hearts of the spectators mused. At this moment, a group of young silhouettes walked over from afar. The young man in the lead was clad in white and looked extremely young. He stepped on the red carpet and arrived outside the Ouyang clan's ancient castle before handing over the invitation. The receptionist did not look at the invitation card. An old man was staring straight at the white-clothed young man, staring at him. It's actually him. That old man's heart trembled. Qin Wentian had once visited the Ouyang aristocrat clan as a guest. Back then, he was still extremely weak and had a conflict with Ouyang Ting, causing quite a commotion in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Hence, there were many in the Ouyang aristocrat clan who had met Qin Wentian before. Now, although Qin Wentian's aura had changed, the old man's eyesight was extremely good. Is there a problem with this invitation? Qin Wentian smiled. The invitation he was holding was from the Mystic Moon Hall. What are you here for? The old man stared at Qin Wentian, as though he wanted to see through him. He knew that Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing had a very good relationship. Back then, Ouyang Guangxing directly fell out with Ouyang Ting because of Qin Wentian. And now, the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan had a marriage alliance. The bride was Jiang Ting, but the groom wasn't Ouyang Guangxing. There was no doubt that Qin Wentian's purpose for coming here was very suspicious. Not only that, this young man had disappeared from Grand Xia for so many years. Now that he had returned, who knew what kind of commotion he would cause? After all, back then, he had once caused a storm in Grand Xia, splitting apart the Pill Emperor Hall, and using the momentum to destroy the Great Solar Qin clan. Naturally, I'm here to offer my congratulations. Qin Wentian smiled. The people beside him had unfriendly expressions on their faces. They were none other than Fan Lo and the rest. Everyone this way please. The old man's countenance sharpened as he extended his hand to guide Qin Wentian in. Qin Wentian stepped out, only to see the old man following behind him, guiding them all the way to the highest level. Instantly, the gazes of the crowd all landed on Qin Wentian, and there were even quite a few who stood up, staring at Qin Wentian. This scene caused many who had never seen Qin Wentian before to feel bewildered in their hearts. What status did this young man have to be able to cause such a commotion? Even if he was an important character from the transcendent powers, he wouldn't be able to cause such a commotion. I think it's Qin Wentian. I've watched the ranking battle of that year. Yes, it's Qin Wentian. I've seen him once before. Someone exclaimed, instantly causing a huge commotion. It was Qin Wentian, the legendary young man of Grand Xia had returned. Back then, he transformed into a great rock and joined forces with Fairy Qingmei and the others to fight against the Great Solar Qin clan, unleashing an unparalleled sword art, and killing the strongest expert of the Great Solar Qin clan. He himself was heavily injured and was on the verge of death, but in that battle, the three ascendants of the Great Solar Qin clan all died. From then on, the Great Solar Qin clan was no longer a part of Grand Xia, and at the same time, Qin Wentian also vanished from the Grand Xia Empire. His deeds had already circulated throughout the entire Grand Xia, and now he had actually returned. Interesting, Ouyang Guangxing and Qin Wentian were like brothers. The conflict between Ouyang Guangxing and his clan was all because of Qin Wentian. Back then, the Ouyang aristocrat clan used the 7 slaughter puppets to fight for Qin Wentian. Now that the Ouyang aristocrat clan has grown stronger, they even allowed Ouyang Zichen to snatch away Ouyang Guangxing's girlfriend, Jiang Ting. Now that Qin Wentian has returned, how interesting. Not only that, back then the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan agreed to form an alliance with Qin Wentian to deal with the Great Solar Qin clan. But because of Junyu's appearance, they betrayed the alliance and didn't act, causing Qin Wentian to fight to the death. And now, Qin Wentian has returned. Many who knew of what happened back then all had expressions of interest on their faces. And indeed at this moment, the gazes of the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan all landed on Qin Wentian, as though they were at a loss of what to do. Although Qin Wentian's personal strength wasn't that strong, he had many methods up his sleeves. Not only that, the things he had accomplished before were still fresh in the minds of many. Why, you don't welcome me? Qin Wentian swept his gaze over the surroundings. There were many who stared at him with unfriendly gazes. For example, the multidirectional Thunderwind sect, Sword Extinction sect, Wang clan, etc. All of them didn't have a good impression of Qin Wentian. No matter if it was in the Azure Continent, Sword Reverence City or Ginkgo, he had offended many major powers and killed many Heaven's Chosen. In addition, it was no longer a secret that Qin Wentian had inherited the power of the Azure Emperor. Back then, the Azure Emperor also had many enemies. This was also the main reason why Fairy Qingmei had always been active in the shadows when Qin Wentian vanished without a trace in Grand Xia. In Grand Xia, there were countless people who wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Not only that, he had a supremely powerful innate technique that nobody had ever seen before. Just this alone was sufficient to cause countless people to want his life. Those who come are guests, please be seated. An expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan smiled. Isn't the Ouyang aristocrat clan a little too polite? Back then, this man massacred the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. His hands were stained with blood. How can there be a seat for him here? At this moment, a voice rang out. The person who spoke had a sharp aura as his eyes gleamed with sharpness. This was an expert from the Wang clan of the War Continent. Back then, when Qin Wentian was in control of the Azure faction, in order to prevent the experts from the Hua and Wang clan from gathering in Ginkgo, he killed many of them. In addition to the grudge from the Sword Reverence City, the hatred between the Wang clan and Qin Wentian was extremely deep. It's Wang Zhan from the Wang clan. He's extremely powerful, one of the 36 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. His title is the Battle King, and his combat prowess is unparalleled. Not only that, he isn't old and has a lot of potential. He might even have a chance to break through to the celestial phenomenon realm. Qin Wentian glanced at him. With a flick of his sleeves, an unrestrained cold smile appeared in his eyes as he mocked. Seems like people from the Wang clan aren't afraid of being killed back then. You still dare to bark in front of me? Rumble. Wang Zhan stood up as a towering battle intent gushed forth from him. As one of the 36 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of Grand Xia, he had already comprehended a type of true intent. Although Qin Wentian was the leader of the Azure faction, a junior actually dared to speak so arrogantly in front of him. Wang Zhan stood up, his battle intent towering to the heavens as his aura gushed forth. Wang Zhan swept his gaze over the surroundings. Other than Fan Lu and the others, there weren't any other experts following Qin Wentian. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he icily stated, "Arrogant brat. Although your reputation isn't small, you still dare to speak so arrogantly in front of this seat? Killing you would be as easy as slaughtering livestock." A mocking expression flashed on Qin Wentian's face as he indifferently replied, "Is that so? You can try. Since you are courting death, I shall grant you your wish." Wang Zhan coldly spoke. After which, he stepped out as the sharpness from him towered up into the skies. A cold light flashed as a strand of saber intent gushed forth, as though it could sever everything. The experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan naturally wouldn't obstruct him. This was a good opportunity for Wang Zhan to test the depths of Qin Wentian's strength. Bzz. A violent wave of sharpness swept through the air, forcing the spectators to retreat. Wang Zhan dashed towards Qin Wentian as a cold light flashed through the air. The edge of his saber was so sharp that it seemed as though it wanted to cleave the heavens and earth into two. As the saber light descended, Qin Wentian didn't move at all. The countenances of the spectators flashed with sharpness. Was this Qin Wentian really courting death? However, at this moment, a resplendent light circulated in the palms of Qin Wentian. He lifted his hand and stretched it out in the air as the saber light slashed downwards, wanting to cleave apart Qin Wentian's palm. However, very quickly, the gazes of the spectators froze as they saw Qin Wentian's palm directly blocking the saber light. Qin Wentian stood there unmoving, as though a terrifying energy was circulating within his palm. 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. The countenances of many in the crowd froze. Qin Wentian's rate of growth was too fast. At this moment, Qin Wentian's palms trembled as a terrifying might erupted forth, shattering the saber light. A gigantic palm grabbed onto Wang Zhan's neck, lifting him up into the air. Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Wang Zhan's body as he coldly stated, "What trash?" As the sound of his voice faded, he crushed his palms together as a crisp cracking sound rang out. One of the 36 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of Grand Xia. The one who had the title of Battle King. The one who boasted that he could kill Qin Wentian like slaughtering livestock. Wang Zhan couldn't even withstand a single strike. Staring at Wang Zhan's corpse falling to the ground, the hearts of the spectators trembled violently. How powerful! After a few years, Qin Wentian had returned in a domineering manner. At this moment, Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan as he emotionlessly stated, "I heard that my brother Ouyang Quangxing was imprisoned by the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Is this true?" Chapter 663. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over to the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. His pitch-black eyes contained traces of sword qi, capable of piercing through the eyes of others. Everywhere he passed by, the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan actually didn't dare to look him in the eye. One of the 36 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns was insta-killed. The so-called peak of Heavenly Dipper in Grand Xia was nothing but a joke in front of this genius. Not only that, the current him wasn't even 30 years of age. Qin Wentian, are you here to congratulate us or to cause trouble? An elder from the Ouyang aristocrat clan stared at Qin Wentian as he coldly spoke. Today was the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. This was an important day for the two transcendent powers. They would never have imagined that Qin Wentian would appear here. I'm asking you a question. Qin Wentian's countenance grew even colder as a demonic light gleamed in his eyes, causing the person in charge to feel a chill run down his spine. It was as though there were strands of sword intent piercing through his head. This is a matter of my Ouyang aristocrat clan. Since when did you have the right to interfere? That elder muttered to himself as he coldly spoke. Although Qin Wentian was famous, his cultivation base was still at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Right now they could still suppress him. How could they allow him to be so impudent? Qin Wentian's countenance turned even colder when he heard this. He took a step forward, causing a thunderous boom to echo out, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. That elder's countenance was as cold as ice as he stared at Qin Wentian. This is the matter of my brother. You want me to not interfere? Qin Wentian's voice rang out. He stretched out his palms as a terrifying palm imprint manifested, capable of plucking the sun, moon and constellations. Resplendent light flashed, containing a terrifying might within. That elder from the Ouyang aristocrat clan erupted forth with lightning, yet the might of the star-seizing palm imprint towered up into the sky, suppressing everything. With a thunderous boom, the star-seizing palm imprint was directly lifted up into the air. Find someone who can talk to us. Qin Wentian's palm trembled, and with a loud rumbling sound, that person's body was directly sent flying, coughing up a large mouthful of blood. The people who came to watch the ceremony were all shocked. They hadn't seen this person for a few years, and now that he had returned, he was even more arrogant. His strength was much stronger than before. Impudent. Bolts of lightning crackled down from the skies as muffled sounds of thunder rang out. From afar, an expert could be seen walking over. This person was clad in a violet lightning robe and exuded a majestic aura. His steps were as majestic as dragons and tigers, exuding a supreme might as he stepped through the air. A screen of lightning seemed to have appeared in the air, flickering unceasingly. It's Ouyang Mutian, one of the 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The hearts of the crowd trembled when they saw who it was. In Grand Xia, celestial phenomenon ascendants stood at the peak, and it was extremely rare for them to show themselves. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian acting so impudently here today, Ouyang Mutian wouldn't even have appeared. He would only stand behind the curtains, spectating everything. Ouyang Mutian's entire body was bathed in boundless lightning bolts. He stood in the air, staring down at Qin Wentian as he icily spoke. Qin Wentian, I won't bother with you about the matters today. You can leave now. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at his opponent. A mocking smile appeared on his face as he coldly spoke. Hand him over. Just 2 words. Even when facing a celestial phenomenon ascendant, it was still so domineering. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, a surge of destructive energy gushed over from afar. The crowd turned their heads over only to see an old man slowly walking over. Every step he took caused the hearts of the crowd to tremble. Another celestial phenomenon ascendant. The hearts of the crowd trembled. The old man was none other than Old Xing. He stood not far behind Qin Wentian, his eyes fixed on Ouyang Mutian who was in the air. Do you think this is enough? Ouyang Mutian swept a glance at Old Xing, his voice as cold as ice. A light laughter drifted over. Outside the ancient castle of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, a silhouette soared up into the air. This person was extremely beautiful, with a pair of beautiful eyes that could cause people to fall into a trance. This person was none other than Fairy Qingmei. Is this enough? Qin Wentian coldly asked. Ouyang Mutian's countenance flickered as he stared at Qin Wentian. Although this person was a junior, he didn't dare to underestimate him. Other than splitting apart the Pill Emperor Hall and destroying the great Solar Chen clan, Ouyang Mutian also knew that the destruction of the 9 mystical palace was done by the subordinates of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, I can give Qin Wentian to you. But don't mess up the wedding today. Ouyang Mutian stared at Qin Wentian, his words causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. Ouyang Mutian actually compromised? I've already said that I'm here today to congratulate you. Qin Wentian smiled. Fine, I hope you will do as you say. If not, my Ouyang aristocrat clan won't allow you to behave so atrociously. Ouyang Mutian spoke as he turned and departed. Ouyang Quangxing wasn't that important to the Ouyang aristocrat clan now. It was fine to hand him over to Qin Wentian. They didn't wish for any accidents to happen during this marriage alliance. This was already Ouyang Mutian taking a step back for the sake of Qin Wentian. Many had expressions of excitement on their faces. Right now in Grand Xia, there weren't many who could make the Ouyang aristocrat clan take a step back. Yet this young man standing there actually did it. An instant later, Ouyang Mutian brought his men over. At this moment, Ouyang Quangxing's robes were in disarray. His countenance was haggard, and the aura within his body fluctuated wildly. How could Ouyang Quangxing be willing to give up after being imprisoned in the Ouyang aristocrat clan? He would naturally resist, and the ending of his resistance was needless to say. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold light. Ouyang Mutian placed Ouyang Quangxing down as he coldly stated, I'll leave Qin Wentian to you. Ouyang Quangxing walked towards Qin Wentian and the rest. The exuberant aura he exuded in the past had already vanished. He stared at Qin Wentian. Jiang Ting, she was forced to do this. If I leave just like this, I would never be able to face my own heart. Sit. Qin Wentian patted Ouyang Quangxing on his shoulders. He didn't say anything more. Upon seeing Qin Wentian walking over, the people at the table all retreated, instantly opening up space for him. Qin Wentian and the rest calmly sat down. Upon seeing this scene, the coldness in Ouyang Mutian's eyes grew even more intense. Flicking his sleeves, he actually sat down on the platform as well. If Qin Wentian still refused to give up today, they wanted to see if Qin Wentian had the guts to behave so atrociously here. The number of people increased as more and more people from the major powers arrived. However, the atmosphere was extremely strange, as many gazes swept over to Qin Wentian and the rest. Today, Qin Wentian brought 2 ascendants, Fairy Qingmei and Old Xing here. Was it merely to fetch Ouyang Quangxing? From afar, in the depths of the Ouyang aristocrat clan's ancient castle, the sound of a bell rang out, after which several silhouettes appeared. In the middle were 2 people clad in formal attire, walking down the steps of the ancient castle. These 2 were none other than Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting. On the left and right there were people from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan accompanying them. Jiang Ting naturally noticed Ouyang Quangxing and Qin Wentian. The corners of her eyes reddened as tears welled up in her eyes. Qin Wentian was here to fetch Ouyang Quangxing. As long as he was safe, she didn't care about anything else. The marriage alliance between the 2 aristocrat clans was something that Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to stop. Hence, she could only compromise. However, at this moment, Jiang Ting saw Qin Wentian smiling at her. How radiant was that smile! After which, Qin Wentian stood up, pulling Ouyang Quangxing's hand. Fan Lu and the rest also stood up, walking behind Ouyang Quangxing as a set of resplendent robes appeared. Fan Lu and Qin Wentian stood behind Ouyang Quangxing as they spoke to the dumbfounded Ouyang Quangxing. Put it on. Before Ouyang Quangxing could react, Fan Lu and Qin Wentian each grabbed one of his hands as they helped him put on the robes. This scene caused the countenances of the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan to turn ashen. Seems like Ouyang Quangxing still wanted to cause trouble. Don't think that I won't dare to kill you. Ouyang Mutian stood up as violet lightning crackled around him. However, Qin Wentian didn't even spare him a glance. He directly pulled Ouyang Quangxing towards the platform, with Fairy Qingmei and Old Xing by his side. Nobody dared to obstruct their path. On the platform, those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan all stood up as a terrifying aura gushed forth, gushing towards Qin Wentian. They also stepped onto the platform, standing behind Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting while Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing faced Jiang Ting directly. Today is the grand wedding of my brother Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. Naturally, I'm here to offer my congratulations. Qin Wentian slowly spoke, causing the crowd to be stunned. The grand wedding of Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting? Today was the grand wedding of Ouyang Zichen and Jiang Ting. Did Qin Wentian want to forcefully change the groom? Above the ancient castle of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, numerous terrifying auras soared up into the skies as a group of silhouettes appeared. The person in the lead was none other than the Ouyang ancestor whom Qin Wentian was acquainted with. His gaze was akin to 10,000-year-old ice. At the same instant, outside the ancient castle of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, numerous powerful auras gushed over as well. After which, a group of silhouettes soared up into the skies. Among these spectators, there were actually many terrifying experts with a cultivation base of at least at the Heavenly Dipper realm. Qin Wentian thanks everyone for coming to congratulate my brother. However, there are still some matters that I have to settle first. Would you all please step back a little? Qin Wentian clasped his hands behind his back as he spoke. Instantly, the spectators below retreated as their hearts pounded. So many experts. Was this the power under Qin Wentian's control? The Mystic Moon Sect. Those are the experts from the Mystic Moon Sect, as well as those from the Azure Emperor faction. They were all subdued by Qin Wentian. There are also many experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan. 5 ascendants appeared at the same time. Qin Wentian's side has quite a few as well. Fairy Qingmei Old Xing, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Sect, as well as the black-robed old granny from the Mystic Moon Sect. A total of 4 ascendants. Their peak strength shouldn't be any weaker compared to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Are they planning to kidnap the bride? How arrogant. The hearts of the crowd trembled, even those spectators outside were incomparably shocked. Today was the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. It was a grand occasion. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that they would encounter such an extremely rare situation where the bride would be kidnapped. How crazy, this is what true brothers are like. In a fit of rage, he brought so many experts to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Countless people sighed in admiration. The experts from both sides were in a stalemate, and it seemed as though a battle would erupt at any moment. Ouyang Guangxing clenched his fists tightly as a warm current flowed in his heart. However, he only saw Qin Wentian patting him on the shoulder. Back then, didn't Ouyang Guangxing also bring people to Chu to help him? There was no need for such words between brothers. Ouyang, do you dare to marry Jiang Ting today? Qin Wentian stared at Ouyang Guangxing as he asked. Why wouldn't I dare? Ouyang Guangxing laughed maniacally as he stared at the beautiful silhouette standing beside Ouyang Zichen. Jiang Ting, are you willing to marry Ouyang Guangxing? As long as you nod your head. Today shall be the day of your wedding. Qin Wentian asked Jiang Ting. MHM. Jiang Ting's eyes brimmed with tears as she nodded her head unceasingly. At this moment, she had already tossed everything aside. The ashen expression on Ouyang Zichen's face had already disappeared from everyone's attention. Qin Wentian. The Ouyang ancestor coldly roared. Too brazen, he had lived for so many years. Yet he had never seen such an arrogant person before. Even if his heart was extremely resolute, he was still angered to the point where his hair fluttered in the wind. What did Qin Wentian treat this place as? He actually dared to do such a shocking thing in front of the eyes of everyone in the world. Chapter 664. Qin Wentian coldly laughed when he heard the roar of the Ouyang ancestor. Old fogey, what do you have to say for yourself? Rumble. The aura of the Ouyang ancestor towered up into the skies. Qin Wentian, a junior, actually dared to call him an old fogey? You've gone too far. Bring Ouyang Guangxing away now, and I won't pursue this matter any further. The Ouyang ancestor coldly spoke. Even if he was forced into such a situation, he still wasn't willing to start a war with Qin Wentian. This young man in front of him had fought against the Great Solar Qin clan, and the Pill Emperor Hall back then, and even annihilated the Great Solar Qin clan. Although he had the advantage in terms of combat prowess, he still didn't dare to underestimate this young man. You won't pursue this matter? Qin Wentian laughed. Back then, you broke your promise to form an alliance and cultivated the ultimate art of Grand Xia. Let's temporarily forget about this debt. You even imprisoned my brother, forcing his beloved to marry Ouyang Zichen. Now you're telling me that you won't pursue this matter? What do you want then? The Ouyang ancestor coldly spoke. Apologize for what happened in the past, and leave the Ouyang aristocrat clan. From now on, you are no longer to interfere in the matters of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The Ouyang aristocrat clan shall be under the control of Ouyang Guangxing. Today's wedding shall continue. Ouyang Guangxing shall marry Jiang Ting. Impudent. The body of the Ouyang ancestor trembled slightly when he heard such arrogant words. His aura towered up into the skies. Qin Wentian, I've already given you enough face. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Mercy? Qin Wentian laughed. He was truly afraid of him. As for mercy, would this old fogey care about mercy? I'll give you one more chance. Do you agree or not? Qin Wentian's voice was even more domineering compared to the Ouyang ancestor, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. Boom. Thunder and fire intersected. The Ouyang ancestor was enraged. Qin Wentian already knew the answer. He turned his gaze over and stared at the two ascendants from the Jiang clan. Today was the day of the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan, and the two ascendants from the Jiang clan had already arrived. I, Qin Wentian, am friends with Jiang Ting. I won't be calculative about what happened in the past. Since Jiang Ting and Ouyang Guangxing are in love with each other, I don't wish to harm the two of them. Hence, today shall still be the day of their grand wedding, a marriage alliance. However, I hope that the two of you can choose wisely. Do you want to sacrifice Jiang Ting and form an alliance with Ouyang Zichen? Or do you want Jiang Ting to marry Ouyang Guangxing and form an alliance with me, Qin Wentian? Qin Wentian spoke to the two ascendants of the Jiang clan. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire crowd trembled. Qin Wentian's words were too tempting. He wanted the Jiang clan to choose whether to form an alliance with the Ouyang ancestor or him, Qin Wentian. Just based on the current situation, if the Jiang clan wasn't included, the strength brought by Qin Wentian wasn't in any way inferior to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Not only that, they had 4 ascendants. As long as the Jiang clan chose Qin Wentian, their alliance would have 6 ascendants, fighting against the 3 from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Should they choose 5 ascendants against 4 ascendants, or 6 ascendants against 3 ascendants? This kind of multiple choice question was too simple. So simple that it caused the Ouyang ancestor to feel a chill running down his spine. A single sentence from Qin Wentian actually caused him to feel a chill in his heart, as though he was filled with fear. If the Jiang clan chose Qin Wentian, what would the consequences be? The 2 ascendants of the Jiang clan were also stunned by Qin Wentian's words as their thoughts sped through their minds. The reason why they formed an alliance with the Ouyang aristocrat clan was naturally because of mutual benefits. What could Qin Wentian bring them? Ouyang Guangxing is my brother, Jiang Ting is my friend. As long as the Jiang clan agrees, I can guarantee that in Grand Xia, the Jiang clan will definitely rise to glory. If you all still choose that old fogey Ouyang, it would mean that you have abandoned Jiang Ting once again. In that case, I will no longer care about the relationship between Jiang Ting and the Jiang clan. In the future, I will treat the Jiang clan as my mortal enemy. Brother Jiang, this brat is trying to sow discord, don't believe him. The Ouyang ancestor stared at one of them as he spoke. How ridiculous, is there a need to sow discord? Aren't you overestimating yourself a little too much? Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan as he coldly spoke. For those who have nothing to do with this, leave the battlefield immediately. As for the others, kill them without mercy. As the sound of his voice faded, killing intent gushed forth. Shameless boasting, this brat is courting death today. Kill him. A towering lightning glow radiated from Ouyang Mutian as a constellation manifested in the air, incomparably resplendent. Within that terrifying constellation, there seemed to be numerous destructive lightning swords that revolved frenziedly, resembling bolts of lightning. Qin Wentian was too overbearing, He actually dared to act so tyrannically during the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. This was simply intolerable. Qin Wentian, do you really want me to kill you? The countenance of the Ouyang ancestor flickered with coldness as killing intent radiated from him, incomparably terrifying. The three ascendants all released their towering auras as the entire sky changed color, enveloped by their constellations. The two experts from the Jiang clan furrowed their brows, not knowing what to choose. Senior Qingmei Hall Mistress, I'll have to trouble the two of you to kill that old fogey Ouyang. Qin Wentian spoke. Fairy Qingmei and the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress nodded their heads as they stepped out, their terrifying killing intent locked onto the Ouyang ancestor. Qin Wentian wanted the two of them to kill the Ouyang ancestor. Humph. The other ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan stepped out, wanting to obstruct the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress. However, the black-robed old granny from the Mystic Moon Hall stepped out as a beam of netherworld light shot over. Old Xing, help Senior to kill him. Qin Wentian spoke to Old Xing who was beside him. Right. Old Xing nodded, joining forces with the old granny to deal with a celestial ascendant. Has he gone mad? The hearts of the crowd trembled. Qin Wentian didn't let the ascendants fight one-on-one. He got Fairy Qingmei and the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress to gang up on the Ouyang ancestor, while getting Old Xing and the black-robed old granny to gang up on the other ascendant. However, the Ouyang aristocrat clan still had Ouyang Mutian and the two ascendants from the Jiang clan. Did Qin Wentian and the others want to die? Even now, I still believe that even if the two seniors from the Jiang clan don't help me, they wouldn't interfere in the matters today. At the very least, we still have a chance to become friends. Just when the two ascendants from the Jiang clan were about to make a move, they heard Qin Wentian's voice. They stared at Qin Wentian's deep eyes that gleamed with a bright light, and they couldn't help but feel trepidation in their hearts. Back then this young man was already so terrifying. Now that he no longer had the confidence, would he really dare to cause trouble in the Ouyang aristocrat clan? Also, a single sentence from Qin Wentian gave the Jiang clan more options. As long as they didn't participate in the battle, Qin Wentian wouldn't have to make an enemy out of them. Since you want to die so badly, I shall grant you your wish. Ouyang Mutian soared through the air, appearing above Qin Wentian's head. His resplendent constellation enveloped this entire space, resembling dark clouds of destruction that could crush down at any moment. Zhongyi Bingyuchan, old clan leader Bailu. I shall leave this place to you guys. Qin Wentian spoke, after which he stepped out and soared up into the air. In his hands, a blood-colored halberd could be seen. This was none other than the Scarlet Demon Halberd. A terrifying surge of bloodline chi soared up into the skies. A terrifying demonic tempest manifested from Qin Wentian, causing him to become incomparably demonic. Resplendent light revolved around him, unexcelled in this world. What is he trying to do? Great waves of shock rose in the hearts of the spectators when they saw Qin Wentian soaring up into the air, moving towards Ouyang Mutian. Qin Wentian wanted to fight against a celestial phenomenon ascendant? Fighting against a celestial phenomenon ascendant at the Heavenly Dipper realm? Even Ouyang Quangxing and Jiangting felt their bodies tightening. At this instant, Qin Wentian's aura had already reached the pinnacle of Heavenly Dipper. The power of his bloodline caused his aura to rise even further, yet it was obstructed by a formless energy, as though he had no way to break through that barrier. This barrier was none other than the barrier of celestial phenomenon. At this moment, Qin Wentian's aura had already reached the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Many experts at the upper three levels of Heavenly Dipper felt their hearts trembling. They had never seen such a powerful character at the peak of Heavenly Dipper before. The disparity between the aura of those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper was simply too great. They weren't even on the same level. I'm begging for death. Are you even qualified? The Scarlet Demon Halberd in Qin Wentian's hand was pointed towards Ouyang Mutian. His arrogance was unexcelled in this world, as though he was the monarch of all demons, ruling over everything under the heavens. BZ. Ouyang Mutian soared up into the air with his constellation in his hands. Lightning sword light ravaged the area, akin to a terrifying tempest. I truly want to see how a heavenly dipper cultivator can fight against a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Qin Wentian's body rose up into the air together with Ouyang Mutian. The aura he exuded was akin to a myriad of demonic beasts galloping past. Die. Ouyang Mutian finally made his move. Both of his eyes flickered with terrifying lightning. With a single word, the constellation in the air shot out beams of lightning sword light, transforming into destructive bolts of lightning that annihilated all the experts within it. This was Ouyang Mutian's constellation, the lightning sword constellation. It contained a terrifying destructive might within. Qin Wentian wielded the scarlet demon halberd in his hands, not moving at all. The beams of lightning sword light slammed into him, causing people to not dare to look directly at him. However, just when everyone thought that Qin Wentian was about to be killed, they discovered to their astonishment that Qin Wentian was still standing there arrogantly. Resplendent light circulated around his body, protecting him like an armor. No matter how the lightning sword light slammed into him, he wasn't injured in the slightest. What a weak constellation. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the constellation in front of him. No wonder people in the past said that the disparity between celestial phenomenon ascendants was extremely great. As a celestial phenomenon ascendant, Ouyang Mutian was a hegemon of Grand Xia. But in Qin Wentian's eyes, his constellation was so weak that it was pitiful. Its destructive might couldn't even be compared to a casual strike from those buried immortals at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian's faint voice caused Ouyang Mutian to turn pale. He felt an incomparably great humiliation. He unleashed his constellation at the celestial phenomenon realm, yet he couldn't even break through the defenses of Qin Wentian's body. If it was me, I would rather not break through to celestial phenomenon than condense such a weak constellation. What's the point of stepping into the celestial phenomenon realm? How lamentable. Qin Wentian's calm voice was like a bolt from the blue, shaking the hearts of the crowd, as well as the two ascendants of the Jiang clan. They all thought that they were the hegemons of Grand Xia after stepping into celestial phenomenon realm. However, a single sentence from Qin Wentian not only shattered Ouyang Mutian's confidence, it also destroyed their pride. Was this the return Qin Wentian? That demon-level genius who once stirred up a storm in Grand Xia, bringing with him a halo even more dazzling than the constellations back to Grand Xia. Chapter 665. For celestial phenomenon ascendants, they would first comprehend their true intent before fusing their astral novas back into their astral souls. During the process of their astral soul's evolution, they would need to infuse their true intent into their astral novas before they would be able to manifest a constellation. This also meant that the constellation of celestial phenomenon ascendants contained the energy of their astral souls, as well as their true intent. Hence, for some stellar martial cultivators with powerful astral souls and true intents, they only needed to use their constellation to suppress their opponents, and they would be able to sweep through everything, annihilating everything. Since constellations were formed from astral souls and true intents, there were naturally countless types of constellations. For example, attack-type constellations, defense-type constellations, control-type constellations, etc. Ouyang Mutian's constellation contained the true intent of lightning within, and was clearly an attack-type constellation. But even so, the direct attack of his constellation had no way to break through Qin Wentian's defense. Qin Wentian had personally experienced the combat prowess of buried immortals before. He dared to confirm that if those buried immortals attacked with their constellations, the moment they unleashed their constellations, they would definitely be able to suppress everything. There was no need for them to even use their hands to attack. Naturally, the reason why Qin Wentian felt that Ouyang Mutian's constellation was so pitifully weak was because his horizons were too high. After all, Grand Xia was a desolate place in the eyes of the experts of the royal sacred region. Those who just broke through to the celestial phenomenon realm could already be considered as a hegemon. For many people, it was already extremely difficult for them to take a single step forward even after hundreds or thousands of years. Breaking through to the celestial phenomenon realm was already considered an extremely great breakthrough. It was simply unrealistic to expect them to have many types of constellations, or to have an extremely powerful attack-type constellation. For those people, they would have long left Grand Xia. The constellation Ouyang Mutian comprehended could be considered one of the simpler ones. It contained the true intent of lightning within, and its attack was already considered very powerful. However, Qin Wentian's defense was simply too terrifying. He cultivated the fiend transformation art, and had long tempered his body to the point where it was as terrifying as a demonic beast. In addition to his powerful bloodline, in addition to the fact that he had refined the Sky Demon Oracle bone into his body, even if he didn't use astral energy to protect himself, his defense was already extremely shocking. And when facing against Ouyang Zhentian's attack, Qin Wentian's body was cloaked with astral energy, as well as illusory demonic energy. Just the attack of Ouyang Mutian's constellation was naturally unable to shake him in the slightest. However, the scene before their eyes had a huge impact on the spectators. A peak-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign could actually be so tyrannical when facing a celestial phenomenon ascendant? This completely toppled their understanding. What if Qin Wentian broke through to celestial phenomenon? Didn't that mean that he wanted to sweep through all the ascendants of Grand Xia single-handedly? For those who came to spectate, there were many representatives from the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. For example, the Wang clan of the War Continent, the Star-Seizing Manor of the Moon Continent, and the Azure Emperor Palace of the Azure Continent. As for the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, it was as though they had already forgotten about the battle with the experts brought by Qin Wentian. They only stared at the battle in the air, and understood that the ending today didn't depend on them. Instead, it was the battle between the three peak-level experts. Initially, they thought that they had the advantage, with 5 ascendants against 4. However, with just a few words from Qin Wentian, the situation changed drastically. 2 ascendants ganged up on one from their Ouyang aristocrat clan. But even so, they initially thought that as long as Ouyang Mutian killed Qin Wentian quickly, they would still be able to salvage the situation. However, Qin Wentian's strength caused them to feel a chill invading their bodies. Did the Ouyang aristocrat clan still have an advantage? Upon seeing Qin Wentian's strength, the 2 ascendants from the Jiang clan were already destined not to interfere. Nobody would be willing to form a death grudge with such a character. Right now, the hopes of the Ouyang aristocrat clan could only be placed on Ouyang Mutian, hoping that he would be able to kill Qin Wentian. Ouyang Mutian's countenance turned ashen. He stretched out both his palms as lightning flashed in his palms, drawing upon the power of his constellation, causing the entire constellation to seethe with rage. Die! Ouyang Mutian coldly roared. Instantly, boundless lightning sword slashed downwards, even more resplendent compared to earlier. Busy. The light circulating around Qin Wentian grew increasingly resplendent. He had comprehended 4 types of true intents, and had even fused them together. Against Ouyang Mutian, he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Numerous lightning swords blasted downwards, unceasingly piercing into the radiance around Qin Wentian, exuding a terrifying destructive might. The collision of light beams caused the spectators on the ground to feel their hearts trembling. However, Qin Wentian still stood there steadily, feeling the difference in his defense after breaking through to the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. How weak! Qin Wentian stared at Ouyang Mutian as he faintly spoke. I don't mind the fact that your Ouyang aristocrat clan betrayed the alliance back then. Today, I gave you guys another chance, yet you guys don't know how to cherish it. Since you guys believe in strength so much, I, Qin Wentian, shall use strength to annihilate all of you today. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian dashed out. Ouyang Mutian's countenance turned ashen. With an intention of his will, his constellation started howling, condensing into a constellation that floated behind him. Boundless energy was channeled into his body as the lightning in his palms condensed into a corporeal violet lightning sword. Lightning danced wildly in the air as he stomped towards Qin Wentian. He wanted to see exactly how powerful a young man at the peak of Heavenly Dipper could be. In the blink of an eye, Qin Wentian arrived before Ouyang Mutian, only to see his opponent's scarlet demon halberd piercing out. In that instant, The entire scene seemed to have transformed into a dreamscape. Ouyang Mutian felt as though his body was being pulled into the world of this halberd. The halberd strike of Qin Wentian seemed to have sliced through the void, but the destructive power it contained caused Ouyang Mutian's hairs to stand on end. Die! Ouyang Mutian roared in rage. He had no other choice but to clash head-on. The lightning energy collided with the scarlet demon halberd. In that instant, Ouyang Mutian only felt countless illusions appearing in his mind. He couldn't see the real world clearly. The divine weapon in Qin Wentian's hands was a 5th-ranked divine weapon. When it attacked, it also contained the power of illusions, able to bring one into a dreamscape. Such a terrifying attack wasn't able to stop the scarlet demon halberd from advancing. The spectators only saw the lightning being compressed unceasingly as Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd slammed into Ouyang Mutian's body. At this instant, Ouyang Mutian felt despair. He felt the invasion of death. Every part of his body was already corroded by the endless destructive might, as though he was about to disintegrate. At this moment, the despair on his face was exceptionally clear under the illumination of the dazzling lightning, but it was also a shocking sight. I overestimated you. This was the last voice Ouyang Mutian heard. It was the voice of Qin Wentian. As the sound of his voice faded, Ouyang Mutian's body directly exploded, turning into nothingness. He disappeared into the void just like that, as though he had never existed. At the instant Ouyang Mutian's body exploded, the hearts of the spectators below trembled, including the 2 ascendants from the Jiang clan. That domineering young man who returned in such a domineering manner appeared in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. With a cultivation base at the peak of Heavenly Dipper, he used an incomparably tyrannical strength to slay the ascendant of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Ouyang Mutian. Not only that, this might not be Qin Wentian's strongest state. That sentence of him saying that he overestimated Ouyang Mutian indicated that from Qin Wentian's perspective, Ouyang Mutian, who was at the celestial phenomenon realm, might not be an opponent on the same level as him. In that case, how strong was Qin Wentian's strongest combat prowess exactly? This was the question in the hearts of the spectators. How strong was Qin Wentian exactly? The countenances of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were like dead ashes. Today, the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan was supposed to be the start of the Ouyang aristocrat clan's hegemony over Grand Xia. All of them were filled with excitement and confidence, but never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that at the start of the marriage ceremony, their dreams would turn into nothingness. The doomsday of the Ouyang aristocrat clan had suddenly descended. The other 2 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan were in the midst of battle when they suddenly discovered Ouyang Mutian's death. Their hearts pounded violently as a sense of sorrow appeared in their hearts. They suddenly felt that earlier, Qin Wentian had indeed given them hope, but he was rejected by them. And at this moment, despair started to corrode their hearts. The black-robed old granny from the Mystic Moon Hall and old Xing were currently surrounding a newly ascended ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The black-robed old granny had already been at the celestial phenomenon realm for many years, and her strength was slightly stronger compared to her opponent. In addition to the cooperation of old Xing, she was able to force her opponent into a corner. With just a single glance, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered, arriving at the battlefield where Fairy Qingmei, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall, and the Ouyang ancestor were fighting. Qin Wentian, why must you be so ruthless? The countenance of the Ouyang ancestor paled. Are you joking? First you betrayed us, forcing my brother's girlfriend to marry Ouyang Zichen. Not only that, you even imprisoned Ouyang Guangsheng. If I didn't come today, would you have killed my brother to prevent future troubles? Qin Wentian sarcastically spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the spectators all exclaimed in shock. So it turned out that in the other battlefield, old Xing's rod had already smashed the head of the newly ascended ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Old Xing and the black-robed old granny were also heading towards this battlefield. At this moment, it was no longer 2 against 1, but 5 against 1 instead. 2 ascendants have fallen, the Ouyang aristocrat clan is finished. This was the thought that appeared in the hearts of the spectators. The countenances of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were all like dead ashes. They stared at the battlefield in the air before shifting their gazes onto Ouyang Guangxing. Qin Wentian had slaughtered his way into the Ouyang aristocrat clan because of him. At this moment, an intense feeling of regret welled up in their hearts. If the old ancestor hadn't treated Ouyang Guangxing in such a manner, the wedding today would have been between Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. If that was the case, Qin Wentian wouldn't have come here to mess things up. He would have come here to congratulate them instead. What a beautiful ending that would have been. Ouyang Guangxing was also a heaven chosen of their Ouyang aristocrat clan. It was just that he had a conflict with the old ancestor, causing the old ancestor to be unhappy with him. Guangxing, persuade Qin Wentian to stop. We know regret. An expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan spoke to Ouyang Guangxing. Ouyang Guangxing's heart trembled violently when he heard these words. He clenched his fists tightly as he stared at the silhouettes in the air. Today, if it wasn't for his brother Qin Wentian's domineering actions, would the Ouyang aristocrat clan even ask for peace? Most probably, he could only watch helplessly as Jiang Ting was forced to marry Ouyang Zichen. And just like what Qin Wentian had said earlier, the Ouyang aristocrat clan might even kill them all to prevent future troubles. And now, an expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan was telling him to persuade Qin Wentian to stop? Was this even possible? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.